main reasons that we didn't believe MSM and why they lost credibility, because they're always pushing these stories that come to find out just aren't true. And it's because of some crazy anonymous source. Like, why would you bring that over to this space? Says Rebel with a Cause says, my gosh, the comments in Candace Owens' YouTube video prove there are people who exist in dimension A and those in dimension B, just like during COVID era. What happened to common sense and critical thinking? The other thing that you'll notice, there's a trend, or there's a clear pattern there in her comments. Look, these are leftist liberals to begin with. Just to be clear, these are people that hate the Trump administration, that hate Israel. These are people that are driven to believe the story through hate because of a couple of different dimensions that you can kind of pick and choose from. And that's why she has such wide appeal. I don't care if you're a leftist, she has appeal. Like, everything she says, like I'm buying into that. I don't care if you're just a conservative or somebody else that hates Israel, I'm buying into that. There's something for everybody with what she's saying. And, if it's not for you, wait till the next episode. Something will come up that she'll bring up a whole nother element of it. Thank you, CJ. We appreciate it.
Shout out.
MJM, thank you for becoming a member. Gary, what's the best way to support you? Join channel, buy from Paramount Tactical. All the above. If you want to become a member, great. If you want to go to Paramount Tactical, number one, look, we're going to take care of you. If you need any of the gear that we sell, go to Paramount Tactical. If you choose us, we would appreciate that.
I like it.
Told you Jay Witt, Candace wasn't going to change. I know a con when I see it. Put peanut butter on French toast. See?
You're right.
You were doing so well until that last part. Freaking psycho.
I'm going to go get some. I'm going to take my daughters tomorrow for breakfast, and I'm going to get some French toast, and I'm going to try it. And maybe I'll stream it or something, but I'm going to try it. And I'll report back in a private chat. I'm not going to come online and tell you, but I'll report back. Because if I die, I don't need y'all to see me dying online. So,
Melissa Cole, guys, I'm not trying to go to bat for Candace. I'm just trying not to dismiss everyone. Gary totally makes sense as well. I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt, trying to be nice.
That's fair.
It is fair. But look, I think if you're a person watching and you're going into this with good faith, and it sounds to me like, Melissa, you're not prone to any kind of weird prejudice or trying to even like confirm some sort of weird bias. All you need to look at is what she's doing and what she's not doing. And I think it tells you her intent. What she's not investigating, like, again, like if you're not investigating the left, if you're not investigating, some of these trans-Tifa groups that were all into guns and everything else. I keep forgetting the name of that one group, but we're going to start into that hard. And the fact that they actually predicted online in several different places that Charlie would be killed at UVU. And she's not even bothering to look in that direction and is pulling from the smallest things and making like benign events super, super, suspicious, and then taking that and then tying it to, oh, these people are definitely involved. That's a bridge too far for me. That's kind of where I'm going with that.
Yeah, and if Candace even tried to pretend like she was investigating the left, I think maybe we could give her a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. But I mean, she's not even addressed no Muslims, no trans-Tifa, no leftist people have been implicated in the investigation of Candace Owens. Only people on the right.
Yeah.
Why does that, like, you would not have watched 2 hours of Charlie Kirk and come up with, hey, by the way, the right probably deleted him.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have been the first thing you came up with. You have to actually cobble this together. You have to make this story work. Because if I just dumped all this evidence on you, Gary, you would never have come up with, oh, absolutely, Trump administration did it. Egyptian planes. Come on. Mormon bees. You would never have come up with that on your own.
I would find her a lot more believable if she was like, you know what? I think Israel or the French or whomever actually worked with Tyler or weaponized Tyler. Like, Okay. I'm in. That's all it takes for me. But it's like, nope, Tyler didn't do it. Nope. If you bring up the left, if you bring up any of those elements that are much more plausible, you get destroyed online saying that you're a Zionist, that you're, getting paid, that you're a Fed, all the stuff. So yeah, timeline is crazy. I agree with you. Gary, please take a minute to watch Brian Inton. Discord grew my child. Gives insight people can't see. Robinson is as crazy as the school shooters. Yeah, and speaking of which, the other thing,
let me look up.
I'm sure you've looked up. You've actually watched the Turkey Tom video, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
About how they were living in an apartment and they're living. Yep. Okay. Yep.
I was just looking at the interview with Pierce Morgan, and it's like over an hour. I think that's something that would be a lot of fun for us to both to go through. But
I love it.
I also think maybe a better. Hold on, if I know a lot of people have not watched the Turkey Tom video,
okay,
and I think that might be a really good thing to watch. Let me just rush through the super chats. Mitch Snow, down patrol, fish at Nature, Richland, Washington, United States, contact info. We're definitely going to do a deep dive into Mitch Snow for sure. Can someone show the evidence that Tyler shot the gun that supposedly had a swapped out barrel stock and yaw angle, all assumption? I literally just said that. I said it was all assumptions. We don't know. Like, I don't know what kind of gotcha game you're trying to play.
Well, let me ask you a question then. Yep. I will show you all of this if you can show me all of Erica Kurtz's flight information that the Egyptian planes were following her. If you show me all of that, send it to me, dearwokec@gmail.com. I will gladly get all that information that you ask for without any problem.
Yeah.
There you go.
Laura Sampedro, 630. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Thank you for what you do. Also, thank you for your service. I'm also a Navy veteran. My twin sister is retired Navy commander. My brother's retired Fed. His last few years were in Charleston, South Carolina at FLETC as a weapons instructor. God bless you. God bless you and your brother. Thank you for your service. And everybody out there, I'm wishing, because I'll forget, I want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, and I hope you guys just have a wonderful year, and God bless you and your families. Imagine 3 months and that guy was her best option.
I mean, that's crazy work.
Can you give your assessment about Mitch Snow? This guy didn't seem confident in what he was saying and felt completely off and different from Candace, what Candace was saying. She was giving leading questions. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is implausible for a lot of different reasons. And we know it's not true because we have proof that Brian Harpole was in Dallas at the time of this. Yeah. So, like, we know that's not true. I think I'm going to go ahead and call BS on Erica being there. And here's the thing, too. Clearly that information was relayed to her during her first episode of that. She didn't include that information. And I don't blame her because it's embarrassing and it's nonsense. I guarantee you, Erica is going to be able to tell you, well, I don't know that she will, but she'll be able to tell people real quick where she was on September 9th. All her evidence comes from a dream. Yeah, I was thinking about that. What they need to do is they just need to lay her down, give her some ayahuasca or some DMT. Let's just go on a voyage and get to the bottom of this thing real quick. I think that would be amazing. Just to support the new PT Congress suit apparel.
Right. What's a Congress suit? Is that what you're making? Oh, is that what you're making?
No.
You said you want to make. Oh no, the Paramount Tactical Congress suit is crazy.
I got another apparel idea. I'll run by you at the end of this at some point in time.
I love it.
I want you to get your input on this. Gary, the other night I asked, when do we stop acknowledging Candace and her nonsense? And you gave the best response, and you're right. Thank you, Gary and Jay Witt. Fight for the truth. You got to continue to respond to this and put it down until it doesn't exist anymore. That is the only response I think is appropriate, and that's what I'm going to do. And folks, I'm telling you, I feel compelled to do this. I think this is what I should be doing because it is damaging such a wide swath of America. It's damaging in so many different areas.
Yes.
It needs to be done. And thank you, Lucas. You're very, very generous. CIA cannot use clergy or journalists as cover or even talk to them to gather intel. This is banned after the Church Commission in 1977. Yeah, I don't know that the CIA that being said, I don't even know that the CIA also, okay, if we're going to go by rules, like the United States military is not allowed to do intelligence operations on the American people. All right, that is one thing that they're definitely not supposed to do. That is watched. I know for a fact because of some things that happened when I was in Fort Lewis, Washington, with First Special Forces Group. That's how you go to jail real quick. Now with the CIA, they're ungovernable. You know, I don't know what they do or they don't do. So just because there is an executive order doesn't mean they follow it. You know, we have a constitution that says that if there is a UAP program, that should have complete oversight by Congress. And I do think there is a UAP program, and I do think that it has zero oversight by Congress. So if they are going to ignore the Constitution and many, many, many other laws that define Congress oversight of any government agency and government oversight period, including the president of the United States, and we know they're doing these type of black operations, which I think there's plenty of proof that they are, they don't care about an executive order. So go ahead.
No, I agree with you 100%. I was only going to add just for you all to consider, just to think about. If you go back and just listen to some of her episodes, and again, listen to how those tip lines drive the conversations. So the tip line today with the CrossFit gym that was getting taken over by gym members that just so happened to be training at Fort Hiawaska, whatever it's called, Huachuca. It just so happened, like, look how convenient that was. Like whenever the stories start to die down, something else convenient just pops up. And you know, she was at her wit's end, so she goes to church and prays. Not praise for Erica, not praise for her own family, not praise for peace in the world, but God, help me, give me something so I can keep this dumb grift going. And I guess the lowercase g God of her prayer sent her that email. Yeah. Like, it just seems convenient. A lot of this stuff just seems dastardly convenient.
It really does. It really does. And folks, I do want to play real quick. See if I can find this episode 277. I just want you to hear her opening statement of that episode. Let me see what we got here. What she says, how there is no way. Yep, here we go. I'm going to play this for you.
I kind of want to hear it.
Don't worry, I'll get there.
In the lobby, and a young woman, comes down thereafter.
All right, this is her opening.
All right, you guys, happy Tuesday. Where to begin? Well, in the final days leading up to Charlie Kirk's assassination, Charlie was pretty busy, right? He went on a first-time trip to Asia, quite a quick trip, at least a quick turnaround to go first to Korea for a couple of days, and then, because something was going on back home that they didn't want him to see. Well, what am I about?
Basically, what she says is, look, everybody had him in Asia, and I assume she means TPUSA. I mean, that's
Right.
that's who directs this travel, right? Or at least has some influence on it.
About to tell you guys today is going to positively blow your mind. I
Mind
just
blown.
cannot see how this would lead to anything other than a full confession from the government about the military's involvement in his
Can I stop
assassination.
for a second?
I'm just going to deliver the facts. And
Can I interject something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you know what else was supposed to blow our minds?
What's that?
When she announced that she was being a hit was put out on her, that was supposed to blow our minds. And pretty much everything else was supposed to blow our minds. Every day, every episode is supposed to blow your minds. And I think because so many people have started making noise about the lack of evidence, that's why she brought this guy on today, because she's never done this.
Yeah.
I don't think she's ever, during the Macron case, all the way through here now. Now she brought somebody on to tell the story and to bring up some pretty crazy ideas. And I think it's because nobody believes her anymore. You're always selling these wolf tickets. But I just want to point that out. But
No. I mean, she does it every time. You're absolutely right. Like today, I got proof. I'm going to show you the receipts. You never see receipts.
Never.
What you hear is my sources tell me.
And see where they land. Welcome back to Candace.
All right, so it's going to blow your mind. There's no way that the U.S. government is going to, be able to.
Then a full confession from the government about the military's involvement in his assassination, but I'm just going to deliver the facts and see where they.
And I think after watching that, which was basically somewhat of a summary of the proof that she provided with this whole thing, like I think most reasonable people would come to the conclusion that, no, it doesn't prove anything, and it's total nonsense. I think if anything, her witness damaged the credibility even further, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm right there with you. CIA black ops are heavily regulated. They're not doing stuff on U.S. soil either. Shout out to Phantom. Thank you for the 5, man.
Look, the CIA is not the only one that does stuff. They are heavily regulated, but there are many other elements within the government that do operations here on U.S. soil. And just like they're not supposed to spy on Americans, we know that they have been electronically spying on Americans for a really long time. So, again, we don't know what they're doing and what they're not doing. Is it possible that she has early onset dementia? Wow, she ain't right. Scary how many people believe her. How? She clearly has mental health issue. Why would she push so many lies? It's a great question. I don't have an answer to it.
I don't.
Everyone should also care about the midterms. If they go the wrong way, then we are in even more trouble than we are now. That's true. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that too, Jay. But, how did Candace become Candace? She pushed conservative politics. She said, hey, all this stuff is just so important. We're losing our country. That's why I started following her. And now, because of this one incident, we're still supposed to acquiesce to the Democrats. We shouldn't go vote. I mean, it just shows me how unprincipled she is to begin with.
I agree. I argue that Candace was never a conservative. There was a vacuum of, and let's just tell the truth, shame the devil. Conservatives and Republicans do deal with a slight level of identity politics as well. There's an optics game as well. And Candace recognized that there's not a proficient, coherent black female in the conservative space. She saw that vacuum and she jumped right into it. And I believe she's been cosplaying. She's a liberal cosplaying as a conservative for almost a decade. And
it's financially beneficial.
It was beneficial and it's given her a platform. And now look where we are now today. But the more and more you look back, you're like, she really has always been a liberal. She just said things that conservatives understood, conservatives agreed with, the conservatives would head nod and say, yeah, absolutely. But because of her phenotype, she knew that they're going to let me get away with this. And I feel comfortable in saying that because look at how Candace attacked other black female conservatives. If you go back and do some research on that, she's pretty vile. And she did some pretty nasty things to tear down other black females that should have been her compatriots in this space. But no, it's just her. Why is that? So that would be my push.
And, I remember a couple years ago when Dana Lash was actually saying that she's warning people about Candace. And I just kind of brushed that off as like some internal strife, like, there's just some female on female hate going on there or whatever else. I wish she would have shared more information on that. The Ghosts, Jay's Speed, something along those lines. So what happened when they were dropping cocaine in football fields in South Central? I wonder what your mindset was when the story came out. I don't really understand the question or how it relates. What I think you're trying to say is that, indeed we had government operations that included drugs and things like that is true. Okay. But just because we take one true element of this story that we can confirm doesn't make the rest of it true. And again, that's what disinformation operatives do. That is a known tactic where they will take things like at the beginning, when she first told the story in episode 277, which was like over a week ago or whatever it was, about this guy, she is saying, given his backstory, okay, he was he was sent down to Fort Huachuca. You know, they're looking for these tunnels. They know that some drug operations are
Sensor
going on.
guys, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying she's just kind of laying out the groundwork, right? And then to reinforce that, she starts playing video of like George H.W. Bush, of during that time, and then showing the actual tunnel that was exposed. So what that does is that gets your head nodding, like, yep, I know that's true. Yep, I know that's true. And what it does is it's priming you to get ready to accept something without any evidence.
Correct.
That's what goes on with this. So they get you agreeing, and then they give you the bullshit, and then you just go ahead. You're naturally more susceptible to agree to the bullshit.
And let me also add, everything she said in that can be found online. There wasn't like real top secret information that I mean, you can find every clip that she showed, every photo that she found online.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that the guy made it up. I'm just saying how convenient that nothing that he shared was like drastically different. And even his story about how he was discharged from the military, we're finding pictures and evidence like he's retired and so on and so forth. Like, you didn't get run up out of there, or like, how did that work? So it seems very problematic. But again, she had less than 24 hours to quote unquote vet this story before she ran with it to put it out. So I'm not surprised that she's stumbling and falling. And just because the CIA did something in LA back in the 70s doesn't mean that they were involved with Charlie Kirk being deleted in 2025. Those two do not have to be together at all.
Yeah, I understand that electronic spying is NSA. My point is that they're not supposed to be doing electronic spying on Americans, period. All right. That's why we have the FISA courts, so that if you do have some sort of, you're trying to get a warrant to be able to spy on Americans, you have to go to court. You have to prove that they're involved, even to get the metadata from their phones or anything else. You have to prove that they have some sort of relevant attachment to a overseas terrorist organization. But what we found out through James Clapper and all these other people, that we had spying on Americans, even though it was against the law. That's a fact. Like, this is all record. And that's my point. I don't think these agencies follow a lot of law. I think they do what they want and they justify it later. I mean, we've never seen any consequences. Has anyone ever been run out of the CIA or even fired or brought up on charges, whether it's NSA, FBI, or anything else, for illegally spying and or doing anything on the American people? I've never seen that. There's never any consequences, so they can do whatever they want. Let me see real quick. We'll get through some of this. I thought this interview with Pierce Morgan was pretty telling, and I think it's actually worth showing.
Land, welcome back to Candace.
Did you watch any of that interview?
I did. I did a review of it yesterday.
Oh, nice. See, you're already primed and ready to go.
I am. It was a very interesting interview, to say the least.
All right. This is it right here.
You're right. And all these Egyptian planes were flying around tracking Charlie Kirk,
Nothing's on
Turning
screen.
Point, and Erica Kirk. Why? What is your theory?
I don't know. I don't know.
But what's your theory then? You must have an idea.
My theory is that we should investigate everything strange that happened on that day so we can figure out what happened. The difference between me and you is that I have the courage to take the risks and ask the questions first, okay, before it's popular. You wait until it becomes popular and then you change your mind. Stop.
And she made no request of you whatsoever, Erica Kirk, in 4.5 hours. Well, no matter what your opinion is about Candace Owens, and very few people don't seem to have one, she has a definite knack for commanding attention. Many people have been openly enraged by her theorizing on the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Many have been captivated nightly. But
she is making
amid all of that, she joins me now for her first interview since the meeting with Erica Kirk. Candace Owens, welcome back to Uncensored.
It's good to be with you at the end of another year.
Yes, and what a year it's been, not least for you. It's fair to say your fame continues to rise, infamy, some would put it, but you're always a welcome guest on Uncensored. Let's get to this extraordinary meeting that you had with Erica Kirk. It came right after we saw her say in that CBS town hall, you should stop with the conspiracy theories. So who approached who about you guys actually getting together?
I was approached by Turning Point after Blake Neff, who works on Charlie's show, sort of fumbled this invite. I'd almost say it was a fake invite publicly. And then in the middle of the night said, oh, Candace is not able to be here
Can we
tomorrow.
stop for a
He never
second?
messaged me.
Yep.
And I think there was quite a bit of public backlash with how they went about it. It's just not the way that we try to set meetings. And so what happened after.
Go ahead.
I think if anybody's watched this, Piers Morgan asked some very straightforward questions. Candace goes all around the mulberry bush to answer this question. She could have just said, Turning Point reached out to me to have this interview, and everybody would have been fine. But the problem is she goes through this long diatribe about it, which conflicts with what Megyn Kelly said later on. And Megyn Kelly, by the way, contradicted herself when she was on her stage when she was talking to Ben Shapiro. So in the Bible says for a reason, in the multitude of words, there's sin, because just answer the question. If she just answered the question, she wouldn't have created all of this confusion, because now everybody's looking weird at her and Megyn Kelly, because Megyn Kelly said something totally different than what she said. That's it.
Yeah, no, I'm a little confused and disappointed at Megyn Kelly, the way that she's handled this, for sure.
Was they reached out to me, said Erica would agree to do a live stream, just the two of us. And then after Erica's PR blitz, they reached out again and said that they felt that it was better for us to meet one-on-one, as opposed to us sitting down having Megyn Kelly moderate, which was the idea originally.
Right. And so where did you have your summit meeting?
At a hotel here in Nashville.
And a lot of your supporters, fans of your show, think that you may have been lured into a trap. Did anything while you were there make you think you were being lured into a trap?
I don't know that a lot of my fans think that I was being lured into a trap. I think ahead of time they had some concerns, obviously, because I think in general, after you see a public assassination and you start tracking so many lies that are happening, there's going to be an understandable amount of angst that people feel. And I certainly felt the angst as well. I've obviously been very clear that I am suspicious of some of the characters that are at Turning Point USA. So I totally understand why the public was concerned.
When you saw Erica, she was obviously angry about you in that CBS town hall. What was her demeanor like when you met her?
Well, I don't think that she thought she was angry in that. I think maybe that was the characterization from the public. I certainly thought she was angry as well.
Let me stop for a second.
Yeah.
I think Candace, again, I don't take Candace seriously at all. But the idea and the notion that this woman has spent the better part of 90 days dragging my dead husband up and down these social media streets, you want me to believe that the only reason she came across angry in that town hall meeting is because they framed it like that and they edited it like that, but she's okay with you? Okay.
Yeah.
If that's what you want me to believe, but there's no reason to believe that. Like, as if Erica has no heart, no soul, which I think is what she's trying to create, that narrative, like Erica does not care about what's going on with Charlie or what happened with Charlie. That's why she introduced this new theory today. Or I'm sorry, she allowed Mitch to introduce this new theory today, so that she can kind of create this idea that Erica's just cold and calculating and strategic, not really a caring wife that we think that she is.
Well, the other thing that she tried to spin too was that that Erica wasn't actually mad at Candace during the interview.
Yes.
It was that Barry Weiss, she was mad at Barry Weiss for trying to, basically get her trapped into answering certain questions or trying to frame a certain narrative, when I think is just absolutely ridiculous on his face. MTX45 says, I also saw Bridget McCrone at Fort Huachuca.
There we go.
I'm sure you did.
Right there.
That she was a bit annoyed by the questioning, the way in which Barry had set up the question with the podcaster Candace Owens, which I think was definitely being driven more by Barry Weiss's feelings towards me, long-running feelings towards me, than it was perhaps for the benefit of CBS and trying to pretend to be an impartial journalist. So I think she was frustrated by the line of questioning, is what she explained to me.
So how would you categorize the 4.5 hours? If you were looking at it in totality, what was the tone of the conversation? What do you think you both got out of it?
Well, for me, answers to the questions of trying to understand why there were so many Turning Point lies, and why instead of people acknowledging that these are lies, I felt that there was this billion-dollar psychological operation to convince people that Candace is just crazy. These aren't lies. These are made up. And so I was very refreshed that they owned up to the lies. That was a great first step. And I think, what motivates that? Maybe because despite having what I would assume to be the best PR agents and crisis PR agents in the world, we're moving toward a different world where people don't really care. If you are friends with the people at, WME and CAA and what they can do for you, that sort of power is ineffectual in this day and age. And so I think they recognize that, and that the public simply doesn't believe the story that they've been fed, and the psychological operation to convince us not to believe our own eyes or to trust our common sense instincts has failed. And I think on their end, they got more clarity on how I figured out certain things, more clarity on.
Nope. I did it on purpose. All right. I
Okay.
forgot, folks. I agree. I think we'll get more out of watching the Turkey Tom video because I think a lot of people have not seen that yet.
Oh, okay.
And I've had about my daily fill of Candace to begin with. Her voice, especially at 1.5 speed, is freaking. It's tearing my brain apart by its
Don't do that. Don't do that.
So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna play the Turkey Tom video because if you haven't seen this, this is information that you've got to have, and the only honest thing to do is if you're really wanting to know what happened is at least have all the information. I think this provides a lot.
I
On
agree.
September 10th, 2025, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson decided he wouldn't be attending his electrical apprenticeship program at Dixie Technical College. At 8:23, he walked to his gray Dodge Challenger, and a little while later, he drove off to Utah Valley University. 3 hours after that, at 11:49, he exited his car wearing a different set of clothes, a cap, dark sunglasses, and visibly limping toward the parking lot adjacent to the UVU campus. He walked up the parking lot stairs, headed to the Low C Center, and then was nowhere to be seen. Meanwhile, conservative speaker Charlie Kirk was hosting one of his debate events on campus, roughly 200 yards away from where Tyler was. At exactly 12:23, a single shot rang out, piercing the left side of Kirk's throat, sending the entire campus into chaos. Although he was quickly rescued and rushed to the hospital, he only lasted for about an hour when his passing was officially confirmed. To add to the already extremely tragic situation, CCTV footage showed Tyler, then unknown to the authorities, fleeing the scene and successfully evading capture, seemingly holding on to a bag with his weapon in it. Part of why he was able to escape were two people who drew attention to themselves immediately after the attack took place. The first is George Zinn, who falsely confessed to the shooting and was promptly detained, and was recorded being escorted by the police with his pants down, as he repeatedly asked them to shoot him.
We don't know if it's him or not.
As it turns out, George Zinn is a man with a lifelong career of being a deranged nuisance orbiting political events. There are pictures of him accosting the former Utah House Speaker Greg Hughes, as well as former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani.
Oh,
but
wow.
more importantly, George is on record claiming to have personally witnessed 9/11 and instantly knowing that Al-Qaeda was behind it. Given Zinn's profile, this was most likely a tall tale, a false account to get attention. Something similar happened in 2013, when shortly after the Boston Marathon bombing, he emailed the Salt Lake City Marathon organizers and offered to help place bombs.
Look, and folks, I think this is somebody that we should definitely be looking into, both George Zinn and Hunter Kozak. And again, maybe they are. We don't have that information, but I know Candace hasn't really talked about George Zinn very much. She's brought him up once or two times in the 25 episodes or so that I've, but it's a non-thing with her, and it should be for all of us. And maybe he was just there and decided to, I don't know, out of the spur of the moment, which seems really odd, to be able to say, hey, you know, I'm the shooter, and to distract from the actual shooter. Seems odd to me, needs to be investigated, and I'm sure it's being investigated, but it's not even being considered by Candace Owens, which is a real problem.
Which got him arrested for the threats. Other things noted in his legal records are commitments to mental hospitals, being arrested for theft of services, failure to disclose his identity, jaywalking, and other stuff like that. Due to the extremely controversial nature of this entire thing, George Zinn ended up being massively misreported as being Jewish, a narrative that found its way even to former NFL star Antonio Brown. However, George is actually a mentally ill man of Greek descent, with a Mormon religious background and a history of pulling this kind of stunt. Just a little while after he was detained, they noticed that he had no weapon on him, and there was no weapon discarded in the area he was in, meaning he couldn't have committed the crime. This doesn't mean he was innocent, though, as when the police brought him in for processing, he had a medical issue that led to him being taken to a local hospital. There, he admitted that he did what he did to purposely hinder law enforcement from getting the real guy. And when asked by cops for his phone, he volunteered, but not before informing the police that he had illegal material involving children on it. As if that weren't enough, he then specified to the cops that he was in possession of the material for his own gratification and had a preference for girls from ages 5 through 12. Given this guy already has dozens of previous cases, I hope he stays locked up for good. Another person of interest that immediately emerged following the attack was a man named David, who was recorded cheering and chanting USA immediately following the shot. While this man's full name is harder to find than George Zinn's, he actually took to Twitter to identify himself as the one chanting, trying to explain that he did it to draw attention so the security team could escape. At face value, this is extremely suspicious, and although it's unsure if this was the second person whom law enforcement detained, it would make sense given he gave them a good reason to believe he was at least involved with whoever committed the assassination. However, a brief examination of his social media account makes it clear as day that this man too is clearly suffering from some intense delusion. In videos he posted, he suggests that Charlie Kirk was a soldier of his and speaks from the perspective of every major religion, which you don't need to be a mental health specialist to recognize as a telltale sign of schizophrenia. Despite George and David clearly committing obstruction of justice, there is no evidence indicating that they were in on what happened.
Yeah, just so we're clear, I'm just going through some of the older super chats. James Clapper testified and admitted that they were picking up the data of regular citizens in front of Congress. That's where that came from.
Mhm.
James Clapper admitted that. He's a leftist scumbag as well. Shows the vet's ID with April 31st as DOB. Yeah, trust me, we're going to do a deep dive into who Mitch Snow is. And we should also be able to figure out if his original name was
Over the course of the next day
or not.
Law enforcement swarmed the location and started piecing together the shooter's movements leading up to the assassination, and a series of strange things were discovered. While examining the vantage point and CCTV footage that showed his escape from the scene, they eventually found that the killer had dumped his weapon nearby, wrapped in a towel. The weapon, which is a Mauser Model 98 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle with a mounted scope, was found along with its bullets. The casing, which was spent, had the words "Notices bulge, oh whoa, what's this?" engraved on it. If you're familiar with this kind of language, which I unfortunately am, this is a meme phrase usually associated with traps. Basically, the idea of it being that the speaker is attracted to a person who looks like a woman, only to find out that they have a bulge, which the speaker is then interested in, and the word "oh being a classic emote associated with anime. The intended irony here is obvious, as Charlie Kirk is infamous for his opposition to transgenderism, so having this phrase engraved on it immediately suggests a political motive. There were 3 more casings, all of which were unspent. The first one read, "Hey fascist, catch," followed by an up arrow, a right arrow, and 3 downward arrows.
Yep.
Which
Could
is
you stop real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it fair? I don't know if you could go back just a little bit to those 3 bullets that are shown. Is that fair to do that? Because we don't know that those are the type. Are those the type of bullets?
Well, I'm sure.
I don't know.
Grab a stock photo of some 30-06 bullets. Those look like they could be indeed 30-06, but really, I would say just recognize them for the placeholder and the visual that they are, not necessarily trying to indicate that these are, anything.
The actual bullets.
Yeah.
Right. Because I can see somebody running with this and be like, "Oh, see, that's as long as my arm."
100% they will.
Spent. The first one read, "Hey fascist, catch," followed by an up arrow, a right arrow, and 3 downward arrows, which is the stratagem code for the Eagle 500-kilogram bomb in Helldivers 2. Like the previous casing, this one also had a clear political message with an internet culture-related element. The second unspent casing had a brief passage of the song Bella Ciao on it, an old Italian folk song closely tied to the anti-fascist movement. Again, clearly political in nature. Although, unlike the other ones, this one has no internet subculture aspect to it. Lastly, the third unspent casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, Lamau." These casings alone strongly suggested that whoever the shooter was, it was someone young, at least someone young enough to be familiar with these online phrases. Unfortunately, even with the prints being lifted from the weapon, they weren't able to identify a culprit. At least to the public's knowledge, these prints didn't immediately reveal the shooter's identity, although they would become useful whenever a person of interest was detained. For the next...
All right. Hey, what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pause this right here, and we're going to come back to that in just a second. Let me separate these tabs so I can see what's going on, because we have a guest, and I want to bring him on. Let me remove this. Andrew, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for coming on.
What's going on, guys? Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Well, listen, look, I just wanted to bring you on. Number one, you were there on September 10th. And I guess, if you will, just take a moment and just tell everybody about who you are, why you were there. And then me and Jay will probably have some questions for you. I'm sure the chat will have some questions for you as well. Yeah. Take it from there, man.
Awesome. So my name is Andrew. How's it going, everybody? So I was hired by Turning Point as a contractor to do photos for the Utah Valley University event on September 10th. And we had scheduled to do some more later in the year. But yeah, I was hired by a friend who works for Turning Point. She's on the event team. And so we had connected months prior to when Charlie was at Boise State University. I reached out and said, "Hey, if you ever need another camera on hand, let me know. And I'll be more than happy to help out." And a few more months after, we reconnected, and she's like, "Yeah, we have this huge tour coming up in the fall, and we'd love for you to be a part of a few of them." And so I did an interview just showing my work and kind of like my process of what I do at events, and they were on board. So Utah Valley was my first event with them, and I was there that day, and it was pretty crazy.
So to give everybody additional context, let's give everybody additional context talking about what has been made claimed, what people have accused you of, I guess. Right. Yeah. So just kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys know who Jimmy Dore is.
Oh yeah.
But he came out with a video basically saying and insinuating that I was potentially the shooter or the second shooter. And he said that I had attached a gun to my camera, and that's how I did it. To give you guys a frame of reference, I was to Charlie's right, about 10 to 15 feet away, and a little bit behind him. And what I was doing at the time, I was taking a photo of the second person speaking. I think that's is it Hunter? Is that his name?
Yeah, Hunter Kozak.
Yeah. And so that's who I was taking a photo of at the time when the shot went off. And but yeah, there's been crazy theories that have been out there for multiple theories, right? But that was one that I was like completely caught off guard by, and yeah, definitely received some doxing threats and some not the best messages every day online, so that's not fun. But yeah.
And just to be clear, I mean, basically, just you being there, that ended up costing you your job, right?
I mean, I was a public information officer for a county that I worked for in the state of Idaho. And with a government position, we have to be neutral in everything, right? And so because I was representing the county in a way that was more conservative, and I guess my boss at the time, my former boss, was receiving calls that like I was on TikTok live and talking about certain things. It was against their policy apparently, and so they had to let me go. So but Idaho is a right for work state, so they can let you go for any reason. So
sure, yeah.
But I mean, as far as I understand, you were basically getting on TikTok and other social media trying to defend yourself, right?
I mean, kind of. My first initial video I made about Charlie Kirk was kind of a perspective of like, so I'm a man of faith. My faith is incredibly important to me, and I just thought it was amazing to see Charlie, give the gospel like 5 minutes before he was shot. I don't know how many people in history can say that. And so from that, you had people coming back to church, and you had people, kind of, what is this Jesus guy about, and so there was this moment where a lot of people were finding their faith. And even in my comment section, like the video I made ended up getting around 4 million views on TikTok. Like in my comic session, people were, buying each other Bibles and talking about addictions that they struggle with. And it was just kind of, in my opinion, it was like a really beautiful thing. So that's kind of where I was going at. And then once the Jimmy Dore video dropped, and people were like, dude, like you're being accused of actually doing it. I was like, wait, what? And that's where like my TikTok lives, I would just talk briefly sometimes about it. And then I would have people come on and say that I did it. And then I would defend myself in that regards. But yeah, that's pretty much what my TikTok was about.
So to be clear, you didn't have any guns attached to your camera, right?
No, in fact, I have my camera right next to me. This is the camera that I use, to Canon R5. This is not the lens I use. Put that thing down now.
Hold on now. Is that thing loaded? Is that thing loaded?
Nope.
Does it have an SD card?
It does have an SD card in it.
Oh, watch out. Oh no.
Yeah. And then this was the lens that I used to 70 to 200 mil. But I will say this too, when so I was there for literally a whole day. So I left around, I want to say like 7 p.m., 8 p.m. But first I had to, drop by the police department and talk to the detectives to hand them my SD card, everything that, I took. And they downloaded all of the raw files right in front of me. They took photos of my camera, of my lens, the serial number, like everything. They were very, very thorough in that. And so, and I was more than willing to help out any way I could. And that actually goes for the rest of the team too. So yeah.
So did you see anything, we always go back to Charlie's AV team, and they secured the cameras and the SD card. And there's been much ado made about that while you were there on the ground. And people need to understand, like, you were just hired, you're an independent contractor essentially, working for TPUSA. You're not part of their team. You weren't flown in, like you live there locally outside of Provo, right?
Well, so I actually live in Idaho. I live in Boise. So my friend who is on the event team, she also lives in Boise, and we actually flew to Utah together. And so I flew in with them. But yeah, I was
Wow.
just a contractor. And yeah, I mean, I can shed a little bit more light on the whole SD card situation that everybody's, made a really big deal about. So
please do. Just take us.
Yeah.
So you're sitting there. You're basically taking a photo of Hunter Kozak as he's talking.
Yeah.
And I guess take it from there. Let's go from the very beginning all the way through your interaction with law enforcement, your perception of what was going on around you, how other people were behaving around you, all those things.
Yeah. So we got to the university around 8 a.m. To help set up. And my job was to capture photos of the environment, people interacting, the students there, the protesters, like anything and everything, right? And the best way that I can describe it was like a college football tailgate. Like the environment was electric. People were cheering. There was constant chants of like USA. I thought it was, it was my first event with them. So I thought it was pretty electric and I thought it was really cool. In my opinion, I didn't notice anything off that day. There was a time where I took a photo of the entire security team. They just wanted everybody to be included, right, in the photos, and to just have this team sort of atmosphere that's presented within the photos itself. So so I did that from about 8 a.m. to literally like as far as getting photos of the surroundings and the environment like that. I did that all the way up until Charlie arrived, which once he arrived, there's actually video somewhere online where you can see Charlie pull up in the SUV and he gets out, he goes to the bathroom, comes back, and we're doing photos with him and the university chapter for Turning Point. And so we're doing group photos with Charlie, and then I'm getting photos of him interacting with all the chapter members. And then from there, we go straight to the hat throwing. And so I'm taking photos of him while he's, throwing hats. And in fact, Erica Kirk used one of the photos that I took on her own Instagram, and it was used for
those kind of
memorial.
now, so those kind of now iconic photos of him throwing hats. That was you.
Yeah, there's one in particular that she used on her Instagram, and she also used it for the memorial service as well. And so, but I will say too, like, I had not really shown anybody the photos out of respect for Turning Point. I didn't sign a contract with them saying I couldn't or anything like that. It's just, I've had people reach out to me and offer me a lot of money for the photos, but that's just not how I do things. So just out of respect for Turning Point and Erica, I've just kept those pretty quiet into myself. So, but yeah, I mean, all the way up to the shooting, I was originally on Charlie's left-hand side and just taking photos of him sitting down. Henry, who was the first person to ask questions, I got photos of him. And then once Hunter started asking questions, I just wanted a different angle, different perspective. And that's when I went around to Charlie's right and started taking photos of Hunter. And then the shot happened. And then pandemonium kind of broke loose.
So the shot goes off. You're off to Charlie's right. I'm assuming.
Yep.
You're kind of facing towards Charlie's 12 o'clock, right? Kind of.
Yeah, I'm facing it like exactly where Hunter was at. That's where my lens was focused on.
Gotcha. Now, when that shot went off, what did it sound like? Did did it sound in the direction of that sound? What did that?
It's crazy because like I grew up with firearms my entire life, been around guns, and so it's weird because like the thought of someone shooting at that event was never crossed my mind. And so when I heard the shot, my first immediate reaction was a firework or a firecracker went off. But then reality quickly set in. I'm like, ooh, no, that was definitely a gunshot. And then I thought originally it came from my right, but I was also standing underneath a concrete barrier and the wall was like right next to me. And I'm pretty sure sound went off the wall into my right ear because my left side was completely open. And so, and once I realized it was a gunshot, that's when I looked to my left and I saw Charlie's security team all over Charlie and taking him back to the SUV. And then that's when I was slowly walking backwards, and there was a car behind me where there's already like 15 people behind, and trying to maintain composure and just kind of took cover.
Hold on real quick. So
yeah,
you saw Charlie's security team down behind the table.
Yeah, they
Right.
like
Yeah, behind the
tackled
table.
him, and yeah.
So
Yeah.
did you see them trying to? Well, what did you see them doing? I'll just say that.
Good question.
So honestly, like, because I was pretty focused on the what I was taking a photo of, which was Hunter. Like, dude, everything happened so quickly. I just saw them tackle him and then take him to the SUV as quickly as possible. Like, I was in shock. I was like, I didn't even realize what had really happened. I was like, wait, what just happened? My mind's trying to process everything. But yeah, this whole team was taken back to the SUV, and that's what I saw.
Did you see anything suspicious from the security team? Anything that they were doing that made you think like that's weird, or that seems like,
No, everybody, like, it was like routine. It was like a routine day. Everyone, like every single one of the security members were so friendly to me. Like I said, it was my first time there, but they treated me like family. And I could tell Dan, he took his job very, very seriously, and he's always on Charlie's right-hand side. And like in every video you'll ever see of Charlie at college campuses, he's always there. And so it was just a routine thing. They're constantly in communication. That's where you see the earpieces. And if you see one of the guys doing this, all of them are probably doing it too, because they're just communicating. And so I think their main responsibility is to cover like the immediate perimeter. So anybody that's jumping over, and from what I know of, it was Utah Valley University's responsibility to cover and make sure like the rooftops are secure and stuff like that. That was not part of Charlie's team's responsibility. So yeah, everything seemed normal. Nothing seemed off to me. Yeah, that's all I can really say about that.
So what did you perceive the direction of the gunshot when it went off?
So like I said, it sounded like it came from my right, but then I talked to other witnesses like right after the fact, like once everything started to settle down, and they showed me videos, like pretty obviously graphic videos, and it looked like it came from the right. And in my opinion, when I saw the video, my first thought, I don't want to admit it, of course, but my first thought was there's no way he survived that. There's no way. Just how his body. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, when you say to your right, given the way that you were standing, what direction does that correlate? Where does that correlate with? I guess is.
I think that would be. I think that would be south. So like the staircase. There's like a staircase to my right. Because we were facing, I believe we were facing east. But yeah, so I think it would be south.
So it seems. Let me like. Go ahead.
Now I was gonna say, would you say that where you thought you heard the sound come from correlates with what you've seen so far as relates to where we believe that the Tyler Robinson was when he did the deed? Does that seem?
I think he's saying.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say I think the shot came like from where Tyler was.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Because I don't know the north and south part, and so I was like, maybe just to add a little bit more context.
Yeah.
But no, thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely.
But what you are, I mean, basically at the time, let me just throw this up here.
Yeah.
Basically what you're saying is, let me get to that page. You felt like at the time it sounded like it came from over here by the staircase.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, sound definitely. And the other thing too, like what's really hard to tell from this, everything is so close. And let me ask you this. Would you agree that if there was a gunman over here by this staircase, that there's no way that he wouldn't be seen or heard?
Correct. I mean, security had that covered too. That was like while I was doing photos, like right after the photos, actually, I was obviously overhearing some conversations that the security team was having. And actually, Dan and I literally stood at that stairwell, and he said, "This place is pretty open. We need to make sure that this place is secure." And so they had that covered too. So, but yeah.
So what would you attribute the fact that, you were over here on Charlie's right-hand side, and you were facing toward the center, Hunter Kozak would have been somewhere in here, right here.
Yes, sir.
Now, and you're saying that you heard the it seemed like at the time you actually heard a gunshot go off from this direction. What would, if you were wrong about that, what would you attribute that to?
Just how sound travels, and how it bounces off things. You know, like I said, I grew up with firearms. I've been to shooting ranges multiple times, and so just how sound travels and how it can bounce off things. I think that's why I initially thought it came from my right, because I was in an enclosed area. But yeah, in my opinion, I do think that the shot came from head on to where Tyler Robinson was.
So the gunshot goes off. We see, next thing you know, the security's on top of Charlie, and now they're transporting Charlie to the SUV to get him to the hospital. So did you follow them along with that? What happened with all that?
My mind went to, like, what's next? Like, is he an active shooter? Is he going to go on a rampage? How many shooters are there? That's where my mind went. And so my mind went to, like, duck and cover as soon as I went behind that SUV. And then, you know, and internally I was definitely panicking, but because there were so many people screaming and freaking out, I kind of had to tell myself, like, calm down, relax, breathe. And then the only photo that I did take after the fact was of the senile old guy that you guys were talking about not that long ago. And as he was being arrested, because my mind went to, this could be used for evidence. And so I just wanted to make sure I got that. But that was the last photo that I did take.
Now, a lot of the photos that came out after this were, you know, a lot of them came from, you know, cell phones, and people were cropping way in, and, you know, the resolution wasn't all that great. Did you see any of the security guys with blood on them, blood on their hands? Did you see blood on Charlie? Like, describe some of those things for
us. I saw the aftermath. And the police did their best to say, stay away from the area. But yeah, I mean, I went next to the table. There was blood all over the table. There's blood all over the ground. Once everything settled enough, we, like myself and other witnesses, Charlie's team, his security team, were taken to, like, this, basically it was like a faculty area within the university. And we were there for probably maybe 45 minutes to an hour while the SWAT made sure the whole university was safe and secure before they let us go. And so I do know the detectives definitely questioned some of the security teams, but yeah, they had blood on them. They had blood on their pants. And that's another thing that people don't realize because it's not talked about. But, like, everyone within that hour, there's a lot of tears, you could just tell this whole security team was defeated. Like, they just looked in shock. And so that was really hard, because here's people, like I said, I was there for my first time, but there's people there that have known Charlie for a very, very long time. And so to see just the grief and the shock and the terror that were on their faces, it crushed me. So.
Wow.
Yeah, that's so what happened after? So they take Charlie off. You know, you guys get taken into this faculty room. I'm sure you're questioned to some extent. Was law enforcement there at that point?
Yeah, law enforcement was there. Also, huge props to first responders, because, you know, they did the best they could in a very scary situation. And yeah, we're in that room for about an hour, and everyone's checking their phones constantly to see if there's any updates on Charlie. You know, I was texting my best friends and my family to make sure I'm okay. And so it was just a lot of, like, just making sure everyone was okay. What can we do for each other? That kind of thing. So yeah.
And I'm sure just everybody's in shock, right?
Oh, it was there was a lot of crime, but there was also a lot of silence. Like, people were just, they couldn't believe it.
Can I ask how long were you there? Like, how long was your day
in total?
You said you got there? Yeah, in total.
Yeah. So we got there like 8 a.m. I think we left there around 4:30. And, like, we got, like, I remember we left shortly after we actually all found out that Charlie didn't make it when he was pronounced dead. And so I mean, there was already like, I've never seen so many police vehicles there in my entire life. Like it was crazy. And there was obviously a lot of reporters outside. I know ABC National News contacted me and wanted an interview, but I declined just because I didn't know what they were going to ask me. So, but yeah, it was, I would say we probably left around 4:30 p.m.
Andrew,
Wow.
what,
Okay.
okay. Going back to, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No, I was saying, no, I appreciate him for sharing.
You know what?
Yeah.
Let's go back. So you got there at 8 a.m. and the event wasn't starting till right at noon. What was going on before the show?
Yeah. So, very similar to pretty much any event I've ever been to. You help with setup. People were bringing out drinks for everybody, like waters and snacks, and basically making sure everybody was, prepared. And then, like I said, for my job was to take photos of, students showing up, the volunteers that were helping out there for Turning Point, just really capturing the environment. I even talked to like the protesters that were there. And, even when I was walking up to them with the camera, they definitely looked a little timid because, there's been a lot of videos at that time that you had other people trying to basically do the whole gotcha type videos to get views and clicks and stuff like that. But I was just glad that they were there. I asked, hey, like, where are you guys from? What brings you over here? You guys need anything? And they were super friendly. And so, which I really appreciated. And so, it just, that's basically what we're doing from 8 a.m. until Charlie showed up, was getting things ready. They did sound checks. They, I was talking to the other production team just to talk about camera gear and kind of nerdy stuff like that. And
And just for clarity, you're only a still photographer. You're not a videographer.
I do video, but this
video,
particular, for this particular event, I was only doing photos.
Do you do drones at all?
I do. And I had my drone with me, but I was told that we couldn't use drones, that the university wasn't allowing that. So, and I did, man, like that's something that I beat myself up quite a bit because I'm very much like, just get the shot no matter what. But I just wanted to respect what was said. But I always think about like, what if I had my drone up? Could I have captured something? Could I have, seen something that would have made a difference,
I got you. No,
so
for sure.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, of course.
And, during that setup, during that time before Charlie arrived, did you see anything suspicious, out of the norm, anything like that?
Not really. I can't really think of anything that I thought this is weird. The only thing that was weird to me was just like, I don't know. I felt like the tent where Charlie was at was kind of like a fish in a fishbowl. Like it was just very, I don't know. It was just that was the only weird part to me. And just because we're super exposed, everyone else is elevated. And but that, I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting spot to have the debates.
Right. Can I ask real quick? Have you done anything else similar to this before?
I've done a lot of events. Yeah.
I think so. Would
go ahead.
So would this event for TPUSA and Charlie Kirk, have you ever seen one like that? Maybe that's a better question. Have you ever seen one situated like that you said like was in a fishbowl or this amphitheater type of stuff?
All the other events I've done were basically for entrepreneurs, and they have their own stage and the crowd's below them. So it was very much like that, and everything was inside. This was actually the first event other than like concerts that I've done where it was outside and it was this type of environment. So
I got you. Okay.
Interesting. The when you talked to the protesters, was there any kind of themes that they were kind of going with? What were they actually protesting? What were they saying to you? What was their problem with Charlie, TPUSA?
I mean, it was, they were, they just didn't like his views on things. They all had the LGBTQ plus Palestinian flag. But like, they didn't say anything like bad to me. Like I just came at them like they're normal human beings. Like, hey, what brought you out here? Like what are you studying? And, basically it was those type of conversations. I didn't want to make them feel threatened or by any. I wanted to make them feel comfortable, and so I just talked to them about normal stuff, and they were incredibly kind back to me. So, but that's they're just very pro LGBTQ plus, and the whole they had the flags and everything like that. So,
sure. Now, up to the point, Charlie's taken off. Like after Charlie was taken off and they hauled off George Zinn, where did you go?
So after the fact, once things were settled down, I went to, the police officer to say, hey, like I was a photographer for Turning Point for this day. I've got photos. Where do I need to go to submit these? Like, I just want to help out. And they were trying to figure that out as things were moving. So after the fact, I went to other Turning Point employees to see how they're doing, what they needed. I went to other just bystanders to see, if they were okay. There was this one gentleman in particular who, he was actually a pretty big dude, all tatted up, and he just looked frozen. And I went up to him like, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? And he looked at me, he just broke down and cried. And so that was the kind of what I was doing, was just going around making sure people were okay. And if there was anything that I could do to help out. And then eventually, once things got even more settled, then the detectives were able to get everybody that said that they were a witness and brought them into the that faculty room, like I said.
Gotcha.
Now, when Tyler were you there when they started taking down cameras and you saw him did you see him take out the SD cards? Like what was going on with that?
So Terrell,
Yeah,
I didn't actually see him take the SD card out of the camera because I wasn't like there at that moment. But when we were in the faculty room together, I was sitting across from him and just making sure he was okay. But like all of us were with the same mindset of like, we want to give these to the detectives. Like we didn't like go through photos together. We didn't delete anything. We were all just there sitting together, just kind of processing everything. But one thing is for sure, we wanted to give what we had to the detectives as soon as possible.
Can I ask about the SD cards?
Yeah.
So let's say you did have the SD cards, and let's say you did delete something off the SD card. Would the detectives, if they copied your SD card, would they know that there was a missing picture, or do they need to see the, or missing video or whatever? So if they copy it off of, you have your SD card and I copy it, would they be able to see that you deleted a video or picture off of your SD card from their file, or would they need to see yours? I hope that makes sense.
So yes and no.
Okay.
So when you take a raw file, everything's in like a numerical order. So it
Here's
could
my
say
raw
like
file.
so you have like
Here's my
picture
raw file.
56 and then it goes to 57, 58, and if you deleted one, go from like 58 to like 60. And
Got
so
it. Okay.
but why I say no is because if you delete something at the very end, there's no way of them knowing. Or so hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah,
Well, and
that makes perfect sense.
Andrea Burkhart was talking to them about, she was the defense attorney that we had on the other night. She said, once the law enforcement gets those files, they can tell whether or not something's deleted just from being able to forensically examine that SD card. So she said, if there was anything, I'm just repeating what she said, if there was anything altered, deleted, or whatever else, at a professional level, they'd be able to tell that. And even, and we know that too. Like I've deleted an entire SD card, and then I was able to go over here and use some recovery software, and then I was able to get all the files back on it. So obviously, with a higher technical grade of skill, they can forensically examine that and tell whether or not any files were deleted or altered or anything else. But there was none of that going on that you saw.
No, none of that. We just wanted to make sure that we gave everything to the detectives as soon as we could. Like that was our mentality, because I knew that everybody wanted to help out and be able to capture whoever did it.
Andrew, was there anything else from that day that you can remember, or anything else you think feels like important for people to know?
I think something that I wanted to take away from this, like like I said, like my faith is important. I've already talked about that, but something that has been really sad to see, especially with social media, because I love social media, but I know social media is also can be used and abused in very awful ways. And I think one of those ways is social media has really desensitized people from each other. And so when you are commenting or, you know, sending someone a message of hate, just let you know, like that person probably has a family. They love just as much as you love. They care just like you care. And like our lives matter too. And so I would just make sure before you say anything to anybody, just really think and process before you hit that send button. Because there's a lot of people like myself, but even people that I know that have been getting way worse of, you know, death threats and accusations than I have. And it really breaks my heart to see, because the people that I met there are people that truly, truly not just cared about Charlie, but also cared about what he was doing. And like I said, and like with open arms and treat. Oh wait, what?
We lost. We froze for about half a second. Yep.
Yep. Froze for a second. Sorry.
Oh, okay, cool. But yeah, no, you're good. And so I really wish that we could just kind of drop the boxing gloves and realize that we all want truth and we all want justice for Charlie. And you know, we need to just come back together as one. That would be my biggest takeaway from all of this, because all of these theories and conspiracies, in my opinion, have kind of really divided everybody. And you're either like Team Candace or Team Turning Point, but we should all be in support of Charlie. And again, there's nothing wrong with asking questions. There's nothing wrong with that. But there is a very thin line between accusations and insinuations. And when people are saying, I'm just insinuating, I'm not really, it's like, you're making a pretty bold claim though. And
you're making accusations that are veiled as questions. And that
exactly. And, you know, we're not dumb. We can read between the lines. And so I just have an issue. Obviously I don't agree with what Candace has been saying. You know, the tweet where she had, they all betrayed him and now she's moving goalpost after goalpost. Like that bothers me, because now you're trying to get a huge following of hers against what Charlie was actually trying to do. And no one's going to be able to replace Charlie. No one. Like no one's going to be able to fill his shoes. And so I wish we could just come together as one in a very loving and respectful way. And even if you don't agree with what's being said, we shouldn't demonize one another. We should all just continue to try to figure out what happened, but do it in a respectful way, because that matters and how you do it. So,
yeah, no. So, you know, you being there on the ground, which obviously is a much better, gives you a much better perspective of reality than us sitting back here and reanalyzing, you know, videos and photos that were taken well after the fact. And then, I don't know, kind of projecting our own thoughts and feelings and perceptions upon those. When you were there on the ground, was there anything to indicate that anybody within Turning Point or anybody that you came across, period, was involved in this or acted suspicious in a way that you were like, oh, this is weird, that they're, you know, did that ever cross your mind? I guess.
No, not even a little bit. Like I said, everybody that I talked to, for the most part, has known Charlie for years. And they were so excited about this because they were excited for the future and what this meant and what this was going to do for the younger generation and for the youth that's going to be eventually running this country, you know? And so like, that was always his mission, was to not just to educate people, but to make sure like, hey, like these type of discussions, these type of debates, they should be the norm. Like we shouldn't be afraid to have hard conversations with people, because at the end of the day, even if we don't ever agree, we should still love and respect one another. And I think that was a huge mission of his. And I think that's what I think is kind of missing now because of all the chaos and all the theories and stuff like that. But no, everyone was super nice and loved Charlie.
Yeah, I think, you know, going back to what you were talking about as far as the hate that we see online and the accusations and things like that, like I think it's always a good rule to live by. Like, don't say anything online that you wouldn't say to that person in person.
Good catch. Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I don't think most people would talk the way they do to other people, because what it does, one of the problems that with social media is it allows us to communicate, but it dehumanizes the person on the other end. Like, we don't see them as a real person, and I think that that's a real problem.
Absolutely.
You know, Andrew, if you don't mind, I got a few. We got a few super chats, especially, and then maybe ask a few. You know, answer a few other questions. MTX 485 says, "Really sorry, man. I can't imagine seeing that." From Idaho myself, you have a new fan. Speaking of which, Andrew, will you tell everybody your social media? Normally, I would have had this thing set up just for you and would have some links. I'll try to remember to put some links to your socials down in the description below when I post this. But what's your socials?
So my Instagram, which I use the most, is Andrew Ferrasi _productions. That's where you can see most of my work and photos and videos that I've done. And then I also have a TikTok, which is also my first and last name. You can find me there. And I'm excited for that, because that's just going to be more videos of what I'm actually passionate about. I think at the end of the day, for me, like, I don't want to be just known as, you know, Charlie's photographer. Like, there's a lot more to me than that. And so, yeah, I'm excited for future content that we're going to be making on there. But yeah, those are the two primary socials that I use.
Well, Andrew, I know too, like, you were even when I contacted you, you were kind of hesitant to do this interview. What stopped you from, what was your concern about, you know, coming out and like telling your story to begin with?
I mean, just all the I don't know, the ramifications that could happen after the fact, you know, like, my fear, especially with everybody, like big podcasters, I never know what's going to be asked. I never want to be put in a situation where they try to put me in a situation where I could look really bad or make Turning Point look really bad. Sure. But because everything was just boiling up with like just more and more and more, I just felt like, you know what, people need to hear someone that isn't related to Turning Point, like doesn't actually work there and was actually there, that has a completely unbiased view. I think the only bias that I have is that I really love Charlie, and I really supported the work that he was doing. But to just have someone that was actually there, that was, you know, feet away from him when it happened, and just to give people my perspective. So I think that was because we need more people to speak out and people to talk about this kind of stuff, because I'm tired of the theories. I'm tired of the quote unquote conspiracies. Like, we need more people that were there to speak up, and not to just speak up, but to do it in a way that's truthful, but also gracious at the same time.
I'm with you.
Yeah, no, first of all, man, just thank you for, you know, coming on here and having the courage to share your story. I know, like I said, a lot of people have tracked you down and, you know, threatened you. And obviously, you know, we have big people like Jimmy Dore irresponsibly making accusations towards you. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, guys. I was just going to make a quick comment about Jimmy Dore.
No, go ahead.
So Jimmy Dore, like, I didn't know who he was before any of this happened. And, you know, he's always claims that, you know, he wants to find the truth. But when I saw that video, I actually commented on it saying, hey, this is me that you're talking about. And I have not heard back from him at all. So I think people that are actual journalists that want the truth have every journalist is supposed to follow a code of ethics. And if you're really trying to find the truth and you see someone comment, and especially it's the person that you're talking about, and you don't reach out to them to find out more, you're only in it for the money. You're only in it for the views. You're only in it for, like, just to get more clicks. And so that told me a lot about who he is, because I was more than happy and more than willing to have a conversation with him. And so that really put a bad taste in my mouth when it came to Jimmy Dore.
Well, it definitely seems like at a minimum, people are wanting to push a narrative, you know, and they're not interested in the truth. And that's the biggest problem that I've seen throughout this. And so there it is, Jimmy Dore. That's a challenge. You know what? You have Andrew here that you're accusing of basically killing I mean, it's not just
Wow.
like implicit. I mean, you're being
Yeah.
accused that you were the guy that pulled the trigger that killed Charlie Kirk, which is unfathomable. And then you responded to him and he had nothing to say. So there you go, Jimmy Dore. If you want the truth, have Andrew on and let him tell you his story. I don't know if he wants to or not, but again, I appreciate you coming on, and I think you're right.
For sure, man.
That was some of the things that I was, communicating to you on Twitter and our DMs. Like, man, I think it's just really important that more people get out here. The more people that speak out that were there that day, the less breathing room some of these. Look, I'm all about conspiracies, but the problem that I have is that when the conspiracies are being pushed with no evidence and in spite of evidence and common sense against them, and you continue to push them, that tells me you have an agenda. So that's the problem that I have, is agenda-driven conspiracies that just never seem to end. So here's a few.
I agree.
Go ahead. Yep. Did you have something to say?
I was just going to say I agree. Nope.
Jay? All right.
I'm going to say thank you, first of all, Andrew, for coming in and sharing your story. Thank you always, Gary, for having me on. I have a nighttime driver. We had a nighttime driver standing in my office. It was like, Dad, are we supposed to be driving? So I need to go take her driving so she can take her test this week. But
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Gary. Very nice meeting you. I'm sorry, Gary. It's nice rap with you. Andrew, nice meeting you. I'll see you guys real soon. Take care.
All right, buddy. Talk to you later. Do you think George Farmer could be her handler? I guess that question's to me. Look, I don't know. George Farmer, for people who don't know, that's Candace Owens' husband. I mean, I don't know. Andrew, are you employed now? Can we do anything to help you?
Yeah, no, I am employed. I have an awesome job. I'm not going to say where I work just because I don't want anybody to email them. But no, I'm doing well. I'm taking basically this whole month off, and I've been doing a lot of freelance stuff, but in my hometown, which has been awesome. But no, I'm doing great, and I really appreciate that question. Again, like, it's weird because like after the layoff, I was like, man, this is just like one thing after another, but I did feel a peace about everything, and now I'm in a way better position, and I'm excited for my new job. So thank you.
Awesome. Melissa Cole wants to know, first of all, she wants you to know that she is truly sorry that you had to endure such a devastating tragedy. With respect, she was wondering what led you to taking the job in Arizona while living in Boise, especially in a role that requires neutrality.
So for me, like, when I do events, like I have a huge passion for photography. So I wasn't like, yes, I love Charlie and I love what he was doing, but when I'm doing a job, I don't really focus on what the message is that is being said. I'm just there to do a job, take photos of the people speaking, take photos of the environment and that kind of stuff, and almost kind of like a clock in, clock out mentality. But yeah, if I'm being fully transparent, I was really excited because I loved what Charlie was doing, and there was more of a passion behind me being there, just because it's like, this is something that's actually changing lives. This is something that is moving a nation. And so, yeah, there was a sense of pride being there. So that's why I took it.
Awesome. We had another question. This is, what time did they build the set, the tent, sound check? Do you have any
all of that was being done between 8 o'clock and like before Charlie got there at noon. So, the tent was probably set up completely, probably by like 10:30. They started doing sound checks around that time. Like I said, everything was very routine. There was nothing that I felt like was out of place or was weird or anything like that.
What time do you think was the tent one of the first things that went up? I mean, so what time was that tent up, would you say, estimate?
I'd probably say between 10 o'clock was probably 9:30 to 10. And then there was another tent that was higher up where the Turning Point volunteers were at. That was basically put up right away because all the volunteers were so freaking awesome and so just diligent and hardworking that, yeah, it went up pretty quick. But yeah, I would say that the main tent went up between 9:30, 10:30, somewhere around there.
Okay. Yeah, and the relevance of that question is, if Tyler did come earlier to see where the tent was, that's the relevance of that question. That's what
Okay. Gotcha.
You know, how early would he have known exactly where Charlie would have been? But the fact is no matter where they put that tent from where he shot,
Yeah.
there was a line of sight, folks. And I can actually show that to you on our 3D model. I've looked at that. Yeah, so it didn't matter if it was moved all the way over to the far left, Charlie's far left, there would have been a line of sight to Charlie one way or the other. Let's see. Yep, Miss Chunky Monkey, thank you very much for that. I'll go ahead and remove this.
Great username too, by the way.
Right? Great.
That's awesome.
If it wasn't made by Ben and Jerry's. Freaking liberal weirdos. She wanted you to know that you were a good guy. Were there a lot of students at the event?
Yeah, there was a ton, and a lot more than I thought there was going to be. I took a wide angle shot of basically everybody that was in that venue area, and it was packed. It was absolutely packed. So, like I said, it felt very similar to like a college football tailgate. Just, yeah.
Was there a lot of people there that you could identify weren't students as well? Was there a lot of
for sure
outside school participation?
There's definitely more students there than like adults, but there was quite a bit of adults there too.
Let me ask you this: how much time, and I don't know when they decided to hire you or bring you on, or how much insider baseball that you were given prior to showing up there, but how far back were you made aware of this event? When were you actually hired for this?
At least a few weeks out, maybe a month. They had everything scheduled out ahead of time because they have to. But sure. I think it was about a month because they, had to make sure that the plane tickets were all set and good to go, and the hotel room where I was staying, that was good to go. So they needed that time to set everything up. So I'd probably say about a month out.
I mean, definitively at least 3 weeks prior to the event, you knew where it was going to be. All those things, right?
Yeah.
All right. Folks, we'll take a few more questions and then we'll let Andrew get out of here. If you guys have any other final questions for him, throw them up now. Now's the time to do it. Let's see. I won't subject you to that. It's basically somebody talking about Candace, not you. Well, this is a great question. Did he run into those who were wearing the maroon shirts? If so, does he know who they were? My guess was a contractor or employee. Did you see people in maroon shirts?
I couldn't tell you. I mean, there was, so many people were.
If you were wearing a maroon shirt, you were implicated in this. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, I mean, so were the bees, but no, I don't know, man. Like there's probably the amount of people I saw that day exceeds my memory for sure. But I guarantee if I went and looked back at my photos, I could probably find at least one person wearing a maroon shirt. But no, like I said, no one was, in my opinion, was suspicious or acting weird or anything like that. It seemed very normal.
Gotcha. Gary Admin note, I love the Dr. Strangelove background. One of my favorite movies. I got to give that credit to my producer, J Dub. The other thing while I have you on here, a lot of people were making a lot to do about hand signals. Did you see any of that? Did that anything like stand out to you that you can confirm or deny one way or the other?
If I didn't notice any hand signals, but like obviously looking at the videos after the fact, if there's any sort of signaling going on, I'm pretty sure it's just the security team being on constant contact. Like you have to be, you're talking to each other all the time, making sure certain areas are secure, anything weird happening. So I don't know. Like when I see those things, I'm like, that doesn't look, weird to me. I feel like that's probably normal for most security teams to have some sort of, way to communicate, but I'm not putting a lot of stock into that. I didn't think there was anything weird.
I hate to even ask these questions because it's so ridiculous.
No, you're good.
It's based on a lot of the questions or the things being said out there. people have said a couple things. Number one, there's the conspiracy going around that Charlie faked his death, that this was all, special effects. Talk about that a little bit, I guess.
Like I said, when I saw the video of Charlie being shot by the front people in the front row, I hate to say it, but in my opinion, he was gone immediately, like immediately. And my own personal eyes, I saw the amount of blood that was on the table, on the ground, like that amount of blood lost, especially from the neck. Like if you're not able to put pressure on that type of wound quickly, you're like, there's no chance. And we're talking seconds here. Like there was just, in my opinion, there's no shot that he lived from that. There was no, I do kind of like stop and think about the people that think that he's still alive, because from what I saw of the aftermath, there's just no way. There's no way. Yeah. And like, there would be no reason for Charlie to fake his death, like at all.
Yeah, no, it makes zero sense. And I don't even believe that he necessarily died from blood loss. I think he had such a traumatic
from the spine. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there was, such a traumatic kinetic event internally between that and the overpressure that his brain was impacted on and everything else. But no, I mean, I don't know. It's a shame that people would even say that. It's I can't think of another outside of even J13th, the attempted assassination on Trump. Like there's definitely never been a more videoed event possible. Definitely not at the level of how graphic everything that we've seen. And it's obviously not, that brings me to another point. When the law enforcement was there, were they going around and talking to other people with phones and that would potentially have additional evidence, things like that?
Yeah. They there was a whole group of people standing together that were like, hey, I've got video evidence on my phone. And all of them were shocked too. Like they just couldn't believe what just happened. But there were so many people there that were so willing to help out because they captured it. And so, yeah, they took all those people. I'm sure they questioned them. Yeah, to answer your question, yes, there was other people that had other footage, and they were brought into that same room that all of us were in.
One of my kind of thoughts on all this is that, like, yeah, there's a lot of footage that we have now seen from that event. I think some of the most important footage, basically what we're left with on social media is what the FBI didn't want, or the Utah authorities didn't want. I think most of the footage that had any real evidence, or maybe they saw something that we haven't seen so far, I think that was all collected and handed over to the authorities. Going back through your photos of that day, were you able to spot anything odd? Did you happen to catch a picture of somebody on that roof or anything like that?
Yeah, so when after the fact that I gave like the detectives all my photos, they gave my SD card back to me. Obviously they didn't delete anything because I still needed to edit the photos, color grade it, that kind of stuff, and give it to Turning Point because I still had my job to finish. But man, I can't tell you how many times I went through each and every single photo just so I could see if I could help out. I even tried zooming in the area to where Tyler was supposed to be and couldn't see anything because it was so blurred out, because my camera has the blurred out background effect, you could say. But yeah, I went through each photo. I got a photo of the old dude in the crowd that was arrested. Yeah, I went through each photo as best as I could to find something, and couldn't find anything on my end.
Melissa Cole says, did it seem they secured the scene quickly to you?
No. I say no because in that situation, their questions are the same as ours. Like, how many shooters are there? Where did they go? Like, is it an active shooter? So they were trying to frantically get people to safety, and while at the same time making sure the area was safe. And then they also tried their best to make to secure the scene. But like I'm sure you guys have seen, people were stealing hats, and I know that with Terrell, like that, getting that SD card was really important because it has evidence on it, right? So we don't want that to be taken or damaged, and that's a crucial part of evidence, which I know he gave to the detectives. So yeah, I wouldn't say they secured it quickly, but I will tell you, I mean, my drone was in one of the SUVs, and I couldn't collect my drone for three or 4 days, something like that, because they wouldn't let anybody near it afterwards. So yeah, to answer your question, I don't think they secured it quickly, but they did the best they could.
That's good. Yeah, man. Number one, can't thank you enough for coming on. I think you sharing your perspective it's huge. I'm sorry that you had to go through that event. I'm sorry that you had to go through, people accusing you of crazy things and the death threats and everything else that you had to endure for that. But I appreciate your courage of coming on and talking with us. Yeah, I hope folks, if there's other eyewitnesses out there, I think it's so important for you to come forward and just tell your story and to get the truth out there. And, if there was something suspicious, we'd like to hear about it. If you just want to tell your story and you didn't see anything suspicious other than, what happened, I think that's important to get out there too. The fact is we need the truth. And the people on the ground there are the best insight to that truth, not people sitting in a YouTube studio and, speculating all to hell and back. It just doesn't bring us the clarity that it needs. Anything else you can think of that you think is relevant to any of this?
I don't think so. I truly appreciate all the work that you put in yourself to figure out the truth, to taking your own time to go to Utah Valley University, interviewing kids there. That's a lot of effort that you put in. So I really appreciate you doing all of that, and for having me on and allowing me to share my story.
Well, man, we appreciate you coming on. Well, Andrew, I'll let you get out of here, man. Thank you so much again. If you need, you know how to get a hold of me. If there's anything I can ever do for you, you let me know. Reach out to me. Let us know. And you got a whole Paramount army behind you. So
awesome, man. I do have a really good friend in town who he runs his own pretty big podcast. It's called the Wild Chaos Podcast, and I was talking to him, and he would love to get you on his show. So I'll give you his contact information. So
be happy to. What is it? Man. Wild. What is it?
Wild Chaos Podcast.
Wild.
So he has he has like former police officers, vets, anybody that has basically a crazy background or stories to tell, that he just loves to hear their story and get to know them. So I'll make sure to DM you his info.
Yeah, is he on YouTube as well?
Oh yeah, he's on YouTube. His Instagram's blowing up and his TikTok's blowing up too. So he's a good dude though. Awesome guy.
You guys know what to do. Make sure if you're listening right now, go give Wild Chaos Podcast a like and subscribe over on YouTube, and we will definitely be happy to do that, man. Just for you.
Cool. Awesome. Hey, man, I appreciate that.
Thanks again, man. We'll talk to you later.
Sounds good, man.
All right, folks. You know what? I want to go ahead and take this time. We already started a little bit. I want to go through the Turkey Tom video. So if you guys want to hang out with me just a little bit longer, we're going to go through the Turkey Tom video. I think that's really important. If you haven't seen that, you need to see it. So let's go ahead and play that. And we're still just, I don't know. I'm going to take it off of 1.5 times. We'll do 1.25. That's usually that's usually a pretty good one. So let's play this and we'll take it from there.
it didn't seem like law enforcement were making significant progress in the case. Given how high profile an incident it was and how much it had inflamed the United States as a whole, people were pretty worked up. And unsurprisingly, they launched their own investigations. Once again, things get a little tricky, but this time around, it's a bit more complicated. It's important to say that as far as any of us know, none of these people are responsible for, implicated in, or in any way related to the assassination. However, it is important to take everything into consideration, especially considering how ominously foreshadowing some of the posts I'm about to talk about are. The first of these is a set of tweets by someone named Omar, with multiple Twitter handles. The tweets from the 9th of September read, "Charlie Kirk is coming to my college tomorrow. I really hope someone evaporates him, literally. Let's just say something big will happen."
All right, so I'm going to address something real quick. I just saw a dumb comment. Let's go up here. Are you kidding me? I don't know who is paying you, dude, but this is the Eyewitness. It's over. It's over, and you're a effing fool. Like, that's the Eyewitness. And this is the problem. Like, you, Candace, following cultist weirdos cannot accept like facts. And when you have somebody on that's an eyewitness, this is like, it doesn't get more sincere than this guy. And then you say that I'm a effing fool when Candace just had Mitch Snow on and make up the freaking dumbest story on the face of the planet, saying that she saw Brian Harpole there, that he saw Erica Kirk there, and I'm the fool for having someone on. Why hasn't Candace had any eyewitnesses on whatsoever? Why? I mean, I think that's just a legitimate question. And like, some of you people are just unbelievable, man. I don't know who gave you your brains. No one's paying me for anything. I haven't made a single dime off of any of this. No one pays me for it. I'm definitely not making money compared to what I could be doing. I'd be making a lot more money if I was dedicating the time that I'm dedicating this to my business. So just stop. This is a huge net loss. I'm just tired of like when I see stuff like this and the stuff that I see on X and see the stuff in the comments, it's disappointing to know that Americans are so freaking dumb. It really is. Like, for the level of stupidity that Candace puts out with zero evidence, with so much evidence against what she's saying, and she can still convince you people of this fantastical nonsense. It's disappointing. It really is. That's the way I see it. All right, let's play this.
Tomorrow. After the shooting happened, this person came back to Twitter to say, "Charlie Kirk got shot. Bro, I promise I didn't have anything to do with it. But I called it, and it's so deserved." Eventually, this person took down their own Twitter account, and someone completely unrelated took the other handle to prevent it from being taken and used by scammers. Side note, this only kind of works because if you look up the handle on Twitter now, the first result is a fake account promoting a crypto scam in the name of Charlie. Pretty disgusting stuff. As people saw this tweet and had a revelation of someone who accurately called that this would happen, someone looked up that handle on Google, found the first picture of a person, and then spread the claim that this person was Omar or Najra Galv's, their Twitter handle. The thing is, if you look up someone's Twitter handle online and go on the images tab, you may get the images of any account that may be associated with theirs for whatever reason. They could have replied to each other years ago and it pops up. In this case, the person in the image is an account named Michaela Ultra from Seattle, whose account is now protected. The thing is, decoupling these two accounts was not enough for a lot of people, who promptly went through their tweets and found a reply from Michaela Ultra to a limited account that expressed they weren't fans of Charlie Kirk. Additionally, 2 other tweets were screenshotted, which read, "I'm crashing out. Coming apart at the seams. You're watching it live in real time. Keep your eyes peeled on the news." When someone replied to them suggesting they would be...
So, folks, we have multiple tweets that this guy has shared that there was people predicting what was going on, what was going to happen to Charlie Kirk. And yet none of that stuff is being explored by Candace and many others. As a matter of fact, as soon as you bring that stuff up, you know, again, they start accusing you of, just like this guy, you know, who's paying you? It's ridiculous. Like, everything points to not only Tyler Robinson, but I do think that there's probably a larger conspiracy at play. And I think this is what we're seeing right here. We need to find out what's going on with them. Candace needs to direct some attention and all of her resources to some of this and not be so myopic and short-sighted and try to say that everything was done by Israel, the French, people in maroon shirts in the U.S. government. I mean, it's just, to me, it's just pure insanity. But you guys can make up your own minds on that.
The next trans shooter, Michaela Ultra replied by saying, "Finally, someone who is smart enough to read between the lines and figure out what all my Dr. Pepper posting is about." Now, as ominous as all of that sounds, especially since these tweets were made just a day prior to the assassination, and Michaela bearing some resemblance to AI-enhanced CCTV images of the assassin, the explanation to these tweets lies in the mention of Dr. Pepper. None of the tweets made on the day prior to the attack had anything to do with Charlie Kirk, conservatism, and it clearly wasn't serious, as they were all related to DMs exchanged with the Dr. Pepper Twitter account, demanding to talk to the real Dr. Pepper. On Instagram, they made a post saying, "I am suspended from Twitter, so I can't post proof of life there, but I would like to confirm that I am not the Charlie Kirk shooter." As far as I could tell, Kayla or Michaela Ultra never hinted at doing anything to Charlie Kirk, nor condoned what happened on the 10th. As far as who was really behind the Omar Twitter account, one person was found. First name Omar, last name Najera, like the Twitter handle, who also identified specifically as non-binary, just like the Twitter account. However, this person hasn't spoken out as of yet, and again, there is no specific evidence tying them to the crime. There was someone else, however, with much more incriminating material on their socials. Much like what happened to Michaela, as people ravenously dug through online posts to find evidence of someone connected to that Omar account who had hinted at what would happen to Kirk, they found a certain Sky Valadez. Sky was a member of a band called God's Finest Scalpel, or simply God's Finest, which was featured on a post of account Click Click Boom. Here, they're tagged as Straight Death, and if that name wasn't suggestive enough of some kind of terrorism, God's Finest had a song titled Charlie Kirk Dead at 31, which was up on its...
So again, here we have a song that was released prior to the Charlie Kirk assassination. It's called Charlie Kirk Dead at 31. But don't worry, folks, this is real.
SoundCloud long before the attack happened, and a similar song called Charlie Kirk's Death Isn't Enough for Me on Bandcamp from an album titled Death to American Scum. While that is all pretty...
Thank you, Natasha. Very good. I share your frustration with all my heart. Thank you so much for your efforts to speak truth to the world. Bethany. All right. So here's the difference between Turkey Tom and Candace. Number one, at the beginning of this, he shows a lot of bona fides. He confirms who this person is, and he shows you how he confirms who this person is. She's not doing that. And on top of that, we're given a lot of receipts. All right. We have pictures of inside their home. We have pictures of all the stuff, all the type of stuff that Candace seems to be allergic to, like real evidence, real receipts. And a lot of the stuff is pretty easily confirmed as well. So like there's a huge difference in what Candace does and what Turkey Tom's video is doing. And the other thing is Candace is completely intentionally not talked about this or not even explored this on her show. She should have been doing what I've been doing the whole time. Like, hey, you know what? If you're interested in the truth, you need to go watch the Turkey Tom video because there's a lot of information out there. Whether you decide that it is true or not, and you'd rather believe something else, you should at least view both of those. So there's that. We got another quick super chat that I want to, while we have it paused, we'll go ahead and hit. You would make a lot more if you talked about remote control clouds, shooting darts with honey tips. Honestly, honesty isn't rewarding these days. Thanks, Gary, for keeping it straight. That's right, folks. Like if I wanted to make money on this, I would just grift like everybody else does and talk about all the other things we could be talking about. And let me tell you something. Like I know talking about this stuff, I'll lose viewers, that I won't gain viewers, that I'm going to be harassed on X and everywhere else. So there's no upside to this whatsoever. The upside is far more on the other direction. And by the way, since I've been talking about this, I've been pulled off of YouTube twice, as in they took down my live stream, and I've been given a strike, and I was off of YouTube for a week. Has Candace Owens been pulled off of a live stream? Has Ian Carroll? Has any of these other people? No, they're getting a lot of views because fiction always sells more than the truth. That's why even the greatest documentary in the world will never get the views that a Marvel Comics video or movie is going to get. You know, we keep hearing, well, Candace is the #1 podcaster. Well, guess what? Jerry Springer was the #1 daytime show. So, like, entertainment, which is what it is, entertainment is always going to get a lot more views, be much more interesting. It's a daytime soap opera. It's a 5 p.m. soap opera. That's what it is. And it's wild and it's crazy. And we're bringing people from Fort Huachuca, and we got the French coming in, and we got a hit squad after Candace, even though she goes to Dollywood the next day. You know, we got Israel. We have all of these crazy things. The U.S. military, special operations, planning an operation with Erica Kirk there, with Brian Harpole there. They're going to fly to Arizona, deploy a special operations team, and kill Charlie Kirk the next day. That's a lot more interesting than us going through the facts and having eyewitnesses on. Not going to get nearly the views. And I don't care. I don't care. I don't care what you say about me. We're going to continue to push in this, and we're going to stop Candace from destroying people's lives. We're going to stop Candace from destroying Charlie's life work. That's what she is doing. And I'm not going to stand by and stay silent. And everybody else out there that it is, shame on you. Shame on you. If you're out there in the comments right now and you believe that what she's doing is destructive and you're not sharing this content and other people's content, shame on you. Like, it doesn't take much courage to get the word out. And for all the big platforms out there, people with large platforms, large YouTube channels, if you believe that Candace Owens is being a destructive force, and you're not speaking out about it because you're worried about views, shame on you. I don't care about how many people's watching this. I don't care if I got 1 million people watching or 2. My message is going to be the same. I'm not going to be captured by my audience, and I don't give a shit about my YouTube channel over the truth.
On the nose, it could just be excessively edgy trans activism. When people took to the comments of the Dead at 31 song on SoundCloud, Sky replied, "I'm not a student at any college. I don't support political violence. This song was a massive coincidence, and I'm leaving it at that. I will not take this down, as I believe in my First Amendment rights, and I believe that if you think this is disgusting, you're..."
All right, so again, this is a massive coincidence that we have a song just the next day. We're not looking into that. We're not looking into that, a song that predicts Charlie Kirk's. But if you acted weird under duress and, you know, you just walked off, or any other weird thing that Candace Owens put out, she thinks you're directly connected to Charlie's murder. But this person, there's no possible way that this person is connected to Charlie's murder directly. No way.
Worried about the wrong thing. This response could have laid the issue to bed, but the people looking into this stuff weren't just looking for potential culprits, but also anyone who knew about the real shooter's plans and didn't report it or try to prevent it in any way. Despite being seemingly completely exonerated, Sky also took to Instagram. "I am not the shooter nor a current alumni at UVU. I had a dream back in March of this year when I recorded and debuted this song on SoundCloud. It's complicated and cheesy, but I did foresee the death of Charlie Kirk this year. However, not at a conference and not by the hand of a gun. I've never been a fan of Charlie Kirk, mostly because I live under the LGBTQ+ umbrella and disagree with everything he says. Then again, I hate all politicians and politics because it's such a wildfire of a situation already. I do not support the shooting in any way, but I am relieved that a Nazi sympathizer is no longer wasting my oxygen." Unsurprisingly, that second half did very little to quell suspicions about potential foreknowledge. So people kept digging, and eventually they found a second Instagram account that belongs to Sky called letters_2_bishop.
Let me jump. So he's given a lot of circumstantial evidence, but let's talk about what's going on specifically with Tyler Robinson and Lance Twiggs, because that's where it gets really crazy and much more interesting, to be fair.
Having foreknowledge of the assassination, but at this point, as it stood, it was confirmed that none of these people were the killer, begging the question, who was actually behind the assassination? A whole day and a half after the shooting, on the evening of the 11th, the pictures of the killer in a cap and dark glasses were released. One of Tyler's friends, who was in the same Discord server with about 18 other people, sent the picture to their chat, jokingly remarking that it looked like Tyler and asking him where he was at. Tyler responded saying that
all right, so his friend in a discourse chat actually says, "Hey, this looks like Tyler."
doppelganger did it, to which someone else sarcastically replied, Tyler killed Charlie. Clearly, the mere concept of Tyler doing such a thing was something his acquaintances wouldn't even consider. He was a seemingly intelligent guy, as his mother proudly bragged on Facebook about his 4.0 GPA. He was a mild-mannered indoorsman who gamed a lot, and although he wasn't a Republican like the rest of his family, he also wasn't even registered to vote and didn't express his opinions that much. Because of this, the rest of his server continued to joke about turning him in to collect the $100,000 bounty on the killer, which was
Gerhard, thank you very much. Gerhard says, Gary, former 11 Bravo here. Just wanted to say, don't let the haters get to you. Most of us out here are with you. Hope to meet you one day, brother. Kill. Yeah, look, I get frustrated, but it doesn't, like, we're not stopping. I don't care. I don't care what happens. So, and what I will also say is for all of you that are constantly supporting what we do here, it's appreciated. It goes a long way. So thank you very much. And thank you, Gerhard, and thank you for your service, brother. We appreciate you.
eventually raised to 1.2 million, or they made recommendations that Tyler not go to a McDonald's anytime soon, referencing the notorious case of Luigi Mangione, who was caught on CCTV when he stopped to get something to eat. Tyler even contributed some jokes about himself, saying he should get rid of this manifesto and exact copy rifle I have lying around. Over a few messages, he said, I heard the ammo had something about trans stuff on it, but they aren't releasing photos or exact quotes. And also, the claim wasn't backed by the official FBI, just some dude in the briefing room. I am actually Charlie Kirk. Wanted to get out of politics, so I faked my death. Now I can live out my dream life in Kansas. Now, there is some justified debate as to whether the other people in this Discord knew the full extent of Tyler's intents and actions before, during, or after the murder of Charlie Kirk. Partly, it's because these messages were provided voluntarily by one of Tyler's friends, meaning they could have either been tailored by this friend in such a way to exclude anything that would incriminate any other members of the server, or it could mean that due to this friend's forthcoming cooperation with law enforcement, he was given a degree of privilege or protection. While it's highly likely that at least one member of this Discord was aware of Tyler's crimes, it's also likely that multiple, if not the majority of the members had no idea. And some of them even expressed grief over the assassination, remarking that Charlie didn't deserve it. Regardless, Tyler definitely seemed intent on keeping people under the impression that he was innocent, and this included his family. For nearly 2 whole days, he kept his family in the dark, and he
So there, Tyler Robinson is once again in a maroon shirt.
probably would have strung them along for longer if he could. But on the evening of the 11th, Tyler's father, Matt, saw the pictures of the killer on the news. To his unimaginable shock, he saw his son being reported about on national television for having murdered Charlie Kirk. Despite his utter shock and disbelief, Matt went to his son and simply asked him, Tyler, is this you? This looks like you. Tyler immediately confessed. But when urged to turn himself in, he responded, I would rather take my own life than turn myself in. Matt promptly contacted their local Mormon bishop, Scott Messinger, and asked him what he should do, who said that despite the risk of Tyler ending up getting the death penalty, they had to turn him in, which his father did, while also refusing to accept the reward money from the FBI, knowing that his...
So there again, we get, he's going to turn himself in, and we get additional information. I don't know where all that information came from regarding Matt Robinson actually talking to the bishop. That's not something that we've heard in any charging documents, and I haven't heard that from an official source. So that's interesting information. Take it for what it is, probably from an unconfirmed source. I don't know where all that information came from, but that's something we hadn't heard before.
Fate had been sealed, Tyler felt the urge to come clean to his friends on Discord. Hey guys, I have bad news for you all. It was me at UVU yesterday. I'm sorry for all of this. I'm surrendering through a sheriff in a few moments. Thank you for all the good times and laughs. You've all been so...
That's the thing. The picture didn't even look like Tyler in the stairwell. I disagree. Like, I think if you come into it with prejudice, trying to say that it wasn't Tyler to begin with, I mean, I guess you can trick your brain into thinking that, but I think it does look exactly like Tyler. It looks like his build, his facial features. It's I mean, to me, it's Tyler. I don't know. I mean,
Amazing. Thank you all
Whatever.
for everything. There was no immediate response, and only much later, one of the members sent a message asking that the others pray for Tyler. At 11 p.m. that day, the cops came and arrested him, though what was supposed to give the public some relief ended up just raising even more questions. However controversial this was initially, establishing Tyler's motive was the easiest part. The casing clearly antagonized Kirk as a fascist. His family remarked that he had recently expressed that Charlie Kirk was full of hate, and his growing left-wing sentiment coincided with his distancing from his family's Mormon religious practices. The fact that he committed the crime was also an easy task to prove, as they forensically recovered a note that he had written and attempted to dispose of, wherein he said, "I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." On one of his devices, they also found communications with a roommate, not named in the affidavit, about needing to retrieve his rifle. This leads me to think that he acknowledged he'd made a mistake in leaving his weapon behind and wanted to go back to get it. But he took too long, and law enforcement got to it first. With the weapon and the towel it was wrapped up in, they found DNA that was a match for Tyler's. As far as the crime itself, it looked pretty open and shut. That is, until further consideration was given to other people being potentially involved in the lead up. You see, soon after his capture, Tyler went completely silent and has refused to cooperate with the police, which led the public to discovering en masse that a lot of the finer pieces of information about his online activities came from someone else. While the roommate was initially anonymous, that didn't last long, as a neighbor of Tyler's came forward to speak with the media, and some pretty interesting things were said when the topic came up, and the neighbor claims to have
I'll address this. Candace herself confirmed through her own sources. I lay it out in my video. If you guys haven't seen my video, Candace's line, it's not a live stream, it's just a regular video. I show you that Candace, when the charging documents first came out, she's talking about how great her source is. And then she starts to read a portion of it where the mother turned, recognized Tyler, and then they decided to turn him in. All right. She said, my source is confirmed, just like this is saying, that that the mothers who recognized Tyler first. And then 12 days later, even though she bragged about how solid her source was, 12 days later, she completely flips it around. And she sits there and tries to say, oh, the media told us that, the mother and the father turned him in. No, you confirmed that with your source on the ground, but you're wanting and planning to switch this narrative around so much that you're going to contradict your own video and your own source. So the only person that has tried to bring some confusion to whether or not Tyler's parents turned him in is Candace. And that was never, she confirmed it with her own sources. We got another super chat. I'll address that real quick while we're here. I'm new to JWIT's channel and found yours. Just want to say I appreciate your boldness. God bless. God bless you as well, and thank you very much.
have witnessed them together.
With him.
Were they holding hands?
Yeah, they were. So, yeah, they drove off in his car, the Dodge Challenger.
And so they look like they were a couple?
Yeah.
There's some published reports out there that this individual, the roommate, may have been transitioning. Did that correlate with what you saw?
Yeah, definitely. I remember them talking about a doctor's appointment. It was about 2 weeks ago, I would say.
And they were kissing?
Yeah.
Do you know, where did you see them kissing?
Just coming out.
While there was some initial pushback to the narrative that Tyler was in a relationship with this roommate of his, this testimony from his neighbor went a long way to solidify this in the public sphere. An unknown source in law enforcement had already attested to the same story. And with this much scrutiny and attention on something, keeping this person's name a secret was basically impossible. Eventually, people found Tyler's Venmo account where one name stood out: Lance Twiggs, who frequently received money from his mother for prescriptions and doctor's appointments, fitting what the neighbor had told the media. On Saturday, September 13th, the Daily Mail published an article identifying this transgender roommate and romantic partner of Tyler Robinson, with the person listed in the affidavit as a cooperator with law enforcement. In it, Lance's TikTok account, Cookies and Cream, was attached, but most of that account's post consisted of gaming clips. It turns out this account was apparently shared with someone named Quinn, or Youngest Kami on Twitch, who didn't have any relation to Tyler. In turn, this led people to consider that this may not be Lance's main account. By simply checking the follows on it, you can find.
All right, folks, I want you to be able, you can go watch the rest of this on Turkey Tom. I do want to share a little bit of the Discord chats, which is another video of his that goes deeper into his actual showing inside their apartment and talks more about their personal relationship. So let's jump on here. I'm going to share this tab instead, and we're going to play that for you. Let me.
Some of this video is my opinion and should be treated as such, but I've done my best to provide you all with the information I'm able to share to the extent it can be verified. In his first message to me, this person said, "Hello, I just watched your video on the Charlie Kirk assassin Tyler and thought you did a good job. I happen to know Tyler and Lance in real life. I don't take a lot of pictures, so I can't prove it very well, but I am in Discord servers where both of them are, including the one where Tyler posted his confession. I have some pictures of the apartments and some stories I can tell." There were 2 pictures attached underneath. One of Tyler's confession in the Discord chat that matched the ones published by Ken Klippenstein, which were then republished by every major news outlet. The other picture is a completely original photo of local police at Tyler Robinson and Lance Twiggs' place, taken from across the street. For the sake of verification, he later also provided me with archives of the 3 Discord servers they shared, which I'll eventually go over the relevant parts of. Once this person's identity was verified, he proceeded to tell me about the state of Tyler and Lance's living space. The apartment would drastically shift from clean to super dirty, depending on the state of Lance's mood. I don't have too many pictures of most of the mess, but basically, he'd start living in the living room and just start turning it into his nest. After the first roommate moved out, and right after Tyler moved in like 2 weeks later, Lance had a really big breakdown. The living room went from a place guests came over to something that had to be hid. People still came over, but everyone got weirded out by all the trash. He basically had layers of wires, random Temu trinkets, decorations, random art projects, clothes, and empty alcohol containers everywhere. And if anyone touched it, he would get livid. One friend got banned from the apartment for a while because he kept touching the Temu trinkets. I wish I still had pictures, but I felt sort of guilty and deleted them since I knew Lance wasn't in the right state of mind. For context, I've been playing games with Lance and Tyler for like 6 years. I count myself kind of close to them, but I was trying to separate them from myself because
All right, so be aware, this guy's known these 2 for 6 years, and we already see some strange behavior from Lance, especially. He's basically a hoarder. He's building these nests of garbage all throughout the house. Pretty strange stuff.
being around them wasn't good for me. I say them, but Tyler was always level-headed and easygoing. But Lance could be anywhere from too depressed to talk to manic, wide-eyes, crazy person. I'll take a brief moment here to comment.
Real quick, guys, super chat. Thank you, Pat. That's very kind of you. Gary, you are appreciated more than you'll ever know. Thank you for everything you were doing. Wonderful, informative information and expert analysis. God bless you. God bless you and your family as well.
And on the fact that in my original video, this is more or less the impression that I had, judging exclusively from Lance's more significant and expressive online presence relative to Tyler's almost non-existent digital paper trail. From Lance's Reddit account and the things his family members had to say about him, he clearly was more outspoken and in some ways unstable. There were Reddit posts of his mentioning being at odds with his family to the point of being kicked out, and he had also discussed a lot of substance abuse issues, which are a far cry from the quiet, even if uneasy relationship that Tyler seemed to have with his family. What was completely unknown, and as far as I know, hasn't been published anywhere, is this combination of hoarding and mania that this person describes Lance as exhibiting. The messages continue. During this first nest phase, Lance started working very rarely. He worked with his dad for a tub repair company. They'd either repair tubs or install them at construction sites. But when Lance was super depressed or just too manic, he'd take the day off and hit his THC vape, drink, and scroll reels. Anyway, 2 weeks before Lance's first nest phase, when the apartment was mostly normal, Tyler moved in with Lance because he just dropped out of.
All right. Carrie Brannon says, I keep hoping the judge shuts Candace down at this point. She is just interfering in the investigation and jury tampering. I'm going to push back on you, Carrie. I think what Candace is doing is immoral. And ultimately, I think she will pay a price for it. But the last thing I want is a judge shutting down freedom of speech. This is something, again, I've said this many times, just like our Second Amendment rights. I'm a Second Amendment absolutist. I'm also a First Amendment absolutist. I think we should be able to self-govern, right? So, and what I mean, and self-regulate. So what I mean by that is, number one, if you have firearms, you're going to use those responsibly and not do stupid shit. But it doesn't mean that we should have to go in and we should have to jump through the hoops that we are supposed to, that we're now required to get firearms. Same thing with the First Amendment. I think we should go back to a society that we once had when it came to, we fought for people's freedom of speech, but it was not acceptable when people started throwing around serious accusations without any evidence whatsoever. People used to say, hey, you know what? That's irresponsible. Now, not only is that was nobody doing that, it's encouraged and it's incentivized and it's monetized, unfortunately. So all the people on Candace's, channel, the millions of people, she has 7.5 million X followers. Like those people should be the ones telling her, like, no, you can't accuse people without evidence. But that's not what's happening. Instead, she's making millions of dollars off of this.
College and was tired of living with his parents. He had been working with his dad at a stone cutting business where they'd install countertops. Tyler was kind of your normal blue-collar Utah guy. Most conversations with him, he'd talk hunting, camping, gaming, and he loved to talk about fishing. Now, first off, the combination of depressants with cognitive
All right, so no, I'm tired of these silly false dichotomies, right? Well, then let's just fire squad Tyler and move on. Obviously, we have had enough info with himself turning into authorities. That's not what anybody says. And by the way, that's not the only info that we have. We have a process of justice, and he's getting a very fair shake at that process. The investigation should go on, and people are welcome to go looking in all these things. Candace could be doing this entire investigation in a much different way. She could be finding out the information that she's finding and bringing it up in a much different way without directly and indirectly accusing people of murder. Like, that's not what we do. What you do is you continue to do an investigation. And if you think that TPUSA is involved, you continue to investigate. Some of this stuff you don't air, but you continue to investigate. I don't know. You can start by going there. You can start by sharing all the information, which she omits so much. But she could be doing an investigation either on camera in front of or behind the scenes, getting all this information and then presenting what she can responsibly. Like, hey, this is what I found out. Hey, here's the Egyptian planes, which, by the way, are debunked all to hell and back. It's all nonsense. But I digress. Like, she could be sharing this information without accusing people. And she can't do that because it's not as compelling. She's not going to have the viewers that she has. It's not going to have the drama that she brings to every show. So there are ways that she could be doing this, and we should be investigating, but there are legitimate ways to do that. And then there's ethical ways to do that. And I don't see her doing that in either case. Like, she doesn't investigate, folks. Reading emails from her tip email box is not an investigation. All right, going there's an investigation. Hiring a dream team of former FBI or former some sort of investigators, bringing on lawyers, bringing on pathologists, talking about the terminal ballistic effects on Charlie, bringing on a huge panel and dream team of people that have relevant subject matter expertise, as opposed to her just saying whatever she thinks. So that's what she could be doing, and that would bring a lot of credibility to her. She could do all the things she's doing while maintaining credibility. Just don't accuse people, and then don't come up with bullshit. Don't just, like, some of the stuff is just so ridiculous.
Stimulants are leading factors to severe anxiety, paranoia, depression, and even psychosis. And that's without mentioning the documented connection between weed and schizophrenia. Obviously, as I assume most of you know, weed basically has two components, THC and CBD. CBD is not psychoactive, and it's often associated with treatments for anxiety, pain, and inflammation. Meanwhile, THC is psychoactive, and despite it also having some therapeutic uses in the treatment of nausea, and side effects of chemotherapy, THC is the component of marijuana that's associated with symptoms like paranoia, psychosis, and, like previously mentioned, schizophrenia. Now, obviously, the vast majority of stoners or casual smokers are not exhibiting these symptoms. This is not a typical thing. But in certain people who are predisposed, THC can absolutely trigger a sort of psychotic meltdown, or it can compound with other mental health issues to make them just much, much worse. In Lance's case, it sounds like he was using way too much pot, while simultaneously drinking heavily and scrolling reels. If there's any way someone can derive psychosis and mania from first principles, this is definitely up there. Now, in my original video about this topic,
So understand what's going on here, folks. So first of all, he's abusing alcohol. He clearly already has some mental issues going on, and he's abusing marijuana while just sitting in his home scrolling social media nonstop. That's enough to make anybody go insane, and we haven't even got to Tyler. So
I mentioned that there were two specific periods of change for Lance and Tyler by extension. The first was 2020, when the pandemic hit, locking everyone inside their houses and apartments, and therefore driving them to spend a lot more time on the old computer. And as the Discord logs are going to show later, it's probably when Lance and Tyler started to communicate the most frequently, even if they were already gaming and talking prior. The second period was during 2024, which is when Tyler moved into the apartment with Lance. And as their anonymous peer here is saying, within 2 weeks of Tyler being there, Lance began his nest phase, as he puts it. Funnily enough, the one other instance I've ever heard of making a nest in your living room comes from Theo Vaughn, talking about what he did during binges of the white dust kind of stimulant, if you know what I mean.
I remember that. I'll make a nest in my living room, dude. Boy.
And more than anything else you can think of.
Turn you into a damn owl, homie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You'll be out on your own porch, you know.
Yeah.
Well, this description is obvious.
All right, so Jeff Karcher says, for lulz, you should watch Nick Fuentes' response he put out yesterday. It's hilarious. I would say I don't believe it's an organized psyop, just Candace Owens' MO of being a mean, nasty bitch. Look, I don't know that Candace is willingly part of a psyop. What I do believe are that there is a psyop and there's other outside forces that are taking advantage of this and pushing it. And I do think that there's foreign actors involved. And I do think that there's political actors involved, especially the left. I think a lot of the views that she's getting, I think all the bots that are attacking other people like me that are clearly bots that are going out there by the tens of thousands, I think that is all funded by either foreign adversaries and or the left. I mean, the left wants Trump destroyed. The left wants the conservative movement destroyed. And they can achieve all of this by supporting Candace Owens. So why would they not? If I was a foreign actor that wanted to see the disruption in America and to make sure that somebody like Trump wasn't elected in 2028, or if I was part of the left and I wanted to make sure that we won the midterms, this is exactly what I would be doing. It's a perfect opportunity to latch onto a crazy person and then just promote her stuff, because the disruption that she's causing within our own country, and not just the Republicans, the disruption that she's causing this entire country is very damaging.
Played up in its context, it's actually a pretty common experience to start hoarding while in states of paranoid mania, which is what Lance appeared to be going through. From his Reddit history, we know that Lance used to be a big fan of Jordan Peterson, who is widely known as the clean your room guy, repeatedly harping on how your living space reflects your psyche. If this leaker is telling the truth, then it would make sense that as Lance's mental state deteriorated, so did the physical space around him. With all of that information regarding Lance being corroborated by these messages, we also have the reveal that Tyler had dropped out of college and decided of his own volition to move out. In my original video, we had the information that he was in an electrical apprenticeship program at Dixie Technical College. But based on these messages, it seems he dropped out and was just working at a masonry business with his dad. Again, this matches the picture of Tyler that one can derive from all of the testimonies regarding what kind of person he was. So after about 5 years or so of being friends with Lance, he decides to move in with him. But at this point, there's no sign that the two are engaged in a romantic relationship. Their peer continues. I felt super bad when he first moved in with Lance because it was normal for like 2 weeks, and then Lance went nuts, and the entire downstairs just became his nest. He'd be doing experiments in the kitchen, which were mostly just growing mold in Tupperware mugs, and the kettle with random Temu trinkets and rocks submerged in them. Every once in a while, I'd try to have a talk with Lance and try to get him to realize he needed help without making him go ballistic. Now, this is actually bizarre. One of the things I didn't pay that much attention to in my first video about this was that Lance made 2 posts regarding growing fungi, one of them in r/mushroom growers and another one of them in r/shrooms. However, they were very brief non sequiturs that didn't at all give the impression of how deeply invested Lance was into growing mushrooms, which apparently he was, at least during his episodes. The interest in mushrooms peaking when Lance is at his craziest reminds me of the Cult of the Lamb cordyceps that takes over one of the characters and makes him want to grow more mushrooms. This is extremely strange behavior, but my personal autism aside, the messages continue. I'm not going to say it was all just him being insane. His mom is super.
All right. Jana Colbreth, Gary, you're awesome. Sent over by Jay Witt. The first time Candy said bees, her clown should have known this is a bunch of crap. Her goal is to ruin TPUSA, 100%. I think she's spiteful. I think she's vengeful. And that's exactly, I think that's most of her motivation for sure. That on top of just getting clicks and money. Making
Mormon and also kind of crazy. So there's that. And all of the drugs, weed, LSD, shrooms, DMT, and I think he said Molly, but I'm not sure. Also, alcoholic levels of alcohol. Lance has always been a little weird and quirky, but never really crazy. He was constantly arguing with his mom every time he saw her, and then ranting about Republicans and Mormons when he got home. I'd sometimes talk with him for like 4 hours of him just ranting about his mom and family. He really hates Mormons. Also, at the time, politically, Lance and I would both probably describe ourselves as libertarian, and Tyler was very apolitical. On his Reddit account, there is one relatively old post about Lance having substance abuse problems, and you could assume that due to him no longer posting about it, he no longer struggled with it. Apparently, it was the opposite, as over time, it only got worse. And it's really the mention here of DMT that stands out to me. While the other drugs are bad enough and can permanently damage your brain, especially in combination with each other, even people who like DMT will tell you about how careful you have to be about using it, even if you try your best to do it in a therapeutic setting. But clearly, Lance was in no state of mind to manage his substance intake in any way that resembled healthy. It almost freaks me out how easily someone like Lance could get his hands on that kind of thing, despite being completely out of his mind for months on end. This set of messages also confirm another suspicion of mine expressed in the first video. Prior to 2024, neither Lance nor Tyler were particularly political, as they only ever expressed opinions that could be loosely classified as socially liberal, which most young Zoomers are by default anyway. However, this changed suddenly and drastically during the year that they lived together. He had his nest phase for probably 3 to 4 months before he sort of went back to normal. But at the tail end of his nest phase, after we had both talked for a while, he told me he was trans and that it wouldn't change anything and that I could even use whatever pronouns and he wouldn't care. Over the next week and a half, the living room got dismantled. He vacuumed and cleaned the kitchen a bit, but he still kept one mold experiment outside for some reason. It was kind of relieving to not see so much trash lying around. We weren't allowed to toss even the most mundane trash like napkins and Taco Bell sauce packets.
All right, so they can't throw out trash. They got Taco Bell sauce packets all over,
which there was an entire drawer of. So seeing all the cans and bottles disappear was super nice. Whenever we came over, people commented on how it's nice that we could hang out without being scared of accidentally touching trash or a trinket and having Lance freak out. We'd have a mostly weekly Magic the Gathering night at the apartment where everyone would come drink, get high, and play Magic. Lance started attending.
Bozzy says, Gary, do you actually think that Lance did not know that Tyler was going to assassinate Charlie? No, I think he absolutely knew that he was going to assassinate Charlie, and I think he may be complicit in more ways than one. I think that's actually absurd. Maybe. We don't know. But again, this is exactly why I went and interviewed. One of the things I want to know, and I think that this is tied in with not only Tyler Robinson, but it also goes back to Thomas Crooks. I think there's a really good chance that these types of people are being found through profiling on the internet, and then they are being radicalized and weaponized and directed at targets. I think that is very real. And as a matter of fact, to confirm that, I went down yesterday to talk to confirm or deny that. I just wanted to talk to the GOAT when it comes to this stuff, and that's Chase Hughes. And I actually got to go to his house yesterday. I interviewed Chase Hughes. I asked him this question. I said, hey, what would it take to actually find these types of people online and to radicalize them? And I'll be releasing that full interview. And even I was shocked by the answer. So stay tuned for that. We'll probably have Chase Hughes on at some point in time live as well, which I would really enjoy. What a great guy that guy is.
Again after he became mostly normal. It's interesting to see that him identifying as trans came while he was in his nesting phase, but he maintained it after it had ended. It does startle me a bit how basically all of Lance's friend group, who frequently visited Lance and Tyler's house, just kind of tolerated this going on for months. I have no idea how it's possible to put up with a situation so clearly deranged for that long, but hey, different strokes for different folks. Now, it's this next set of messages that I find it really interesting. Between all of his turns while playing Magic, Lance would go hang out with Tyler, and we'd have to call him to the tables every time it was his turn. One of my gym buddies was the first to pick up on Tyler and Lance being really close. I was in denial for months because I thought Tyler was straight, and also I kind of did not want it to be true. Eventually, I kind of snapped out of it like the nth.
Look, I think this comment is exactly true. I think some of the perception that all of us have that these text messages were contrived is because they are. They conveniently and very systematically, basically essentially prove that Lance is innocent of all this stuff that he didn't know. I don't think that's plausible. I think it's ridiculous. It also does the same thing for the people in the Discord chat. So he talks about that. And I think those actually came from the Discord chat where he says, sorry, guys, didn't mean to get you involved with all this stuff. So not only is he going through both text messages and Discord chat and basically proving the innocence of everybody else involved in this, he also he's also confessing at the same time. So it's like this indirect way to say these people aren't involved and I'm the one that's guilty. He's taking all the blame. And I think that is engineered. I think it's a very plausible that that's engineered.
Time I saw them asleep, cuddling on the couch. I kind of didn't think too much of it since Lance would get super cuddly every time he got drunk, which is how I think they got together, because I'm pretty sure Tyler was a virgin when he moved in. So probably when Lance was in the cuddly mood, probably something happened, but that's just my guess. This is where a lot of things start clicking together. Tyler, an introverted gamer who, as far as anyone could tell, had no prior relationships of any significance, spent 4 months living with his best friend, Lance, who apparently got overly cuddly with everyone while drunk, and simultaneously had the proclivity to drink too often. It's not surprising that this was the outcome of a touch-starved virgin gamer living in the same house as a touchy-feely, seemingly manic trans person. However, a while after Lance had mostly gone back to normal, things started to intensify again. I started noticing changes in Lance's political view.
Yeah, look, this is one of the things I believe, and this is pure speculation. But you have this kid, 22-year-old kid, isn't familiar with how the world works, is very easily influenced, and he's put into a situation with a very dominant person like Lance, and you'll see that's his personality later on. So, and then, I hate to even say it because it grosses me out. Romantically, they get involved well beyond that. So now this is probably the first significant relationship that Tyler has, and we know how that goes. So now he's going to believe whatever Lance believes, and then you have this dominant personality that's pushing these beliefs on him, and then you have a beta type, which Tyler clearly is, that probably feels the need to prove to this person that they believe all this stuff, and they're buying into all this stuff, and he heralds for him, right? So I think there's a lot of the stuff going on here, this dynamic where you have the less dominant person in the relationship, the non-dominant person in the relationship, trying to prove his fealty to the more dominant one. And then he just takes it way too far. And probably chances are, especially if you're susceptible to this type of environment to begin with, Tyler probably wasn't all there to be, so, and there's some other things that are said throughout this that really do, in my mind, point to sociopath personality.
As the presidential election got closer. He amped up the complaints of old people staring at him, which probably was because he dressed like a stoner and not because he was female presenting, because all he did in that department was grow out his hair and wear mascara every once in a while. He also hated that the construction workers would misgender him, which I thought was weird since he said he was fine with any pronoun. Tyler wouldn't really get political until after the election. He'd sometimes just casually bring up the latest thing Trump had done and complain about what it'd do to the country, but in a very level-headed way. Before the election, Lance's friend group was the quirky LGBT group with a lot of mental illnesses. Not saying the two are linked, but that's how my friends knew them. They're the people who are in Lance's server for the most part. After the election, they became a lot more political, but not to an extremist level. By this point, I could safely say Lance and Tyler were some flavor of left-wing, while I'd become tired of politics and mostly apolitical, but never anything I thought was like dangerous. At some point, they told me about their relationship and were pretty open about it after that. It became very uncomfortable for me because while I don't think of myself as homophobic, seeing two dudes constantly make out was a bit much. Also, since Lance's room was always super messy, they would bang in Tyler's room, and I didn't like hearing it.
Oh my God. So they have guests over and they're going up there doing, number one, they're making out, PDA. Dude, it grossed me out. And then on top of that, they're going upstairs and creating quite the ruckus.
I cannot imagine how much it sucked to be in this guy's shoes. While this is a bit out of character for Tyler, who's been consistently described as reserved, it does match Lance's behavior of being overly transparent and letting other people, even people who randomly visited him, see into his intimate life to a point where it's concerning. It's also fitting that Lance's pre-existent paranoid behaviors were now manifesting in correlation to his gender, as despite not being particularly female presenting or being concerned with being seen and treated as a woman, he still took issue with anyone who perceived him as a man. People who are paranoid often assume others look upon them negatively, no matter how asinine the reason may be. Clearly, Lance's mental state was deteriorating, and whether intentionally or not, he was dragging Tyler along with him. And this became increasingly transparent over time. Their mutual acquaintance continues. Lance started becoming more and more erratic again until, at the end of December, he just had another nuclear meltdown after having another argument. Also, a couple months before, we noticed Lance had been growing breasts and said that he'd been taking black market HRT, which I do not know what that entailed, but I think it was making him very erratic. So he basically shut down for like 2 weeks, not talking, just hitting his vape.
This is kind of a side note, but this is one of the things that Charlie is pushing against, right? We have this kid that is clearly confused, and that's putting it lightly. And so now he's dabbling around with the idea that he's not a dude, he's a chick. So he's already disturbed. He definitely has mental illness. He's taking drugs, abusing alcohol, and now he's taking HRT. Like, why does the left not see the problem with this? Now, he's over 20. I don't care. If that's what he wants to do, that's fine. But the idea that they're going to do this to younger kids as young as 8, 9, 10 years old, even younger, I believe, it's just disgusting. And Charlie Kirk rightfully constantly spoke out about that.
In the living room in the dark. So here we have the mention of possibly one of the most concerning details about what kind of substances Lance was on at this point in time. Taking synthetic hormones of any kind, whether the kind and quantity your body already produces or not, is extremely dangerous and can cause pretty much every kind of health issue imaginable, including mental. Even if you're a guy and you take just a little bit of testosterone, you can suffer all kinds of side effects. So obviously, in Lance's case, the risks are much greater by default, and it's made exponentially more dangerous given the circumstances. This is someone who has proven himself to be delusional, chronically sleep deprived, and prone to overdoing substances. There is simply no chance he was mentally well enough to manage and administer dosages of any kind, let alone procure or produce untainted bathtub HRT. While studies on this stuff are hard to come by, there have been a few documented cases of people in similar situations to Lance. For example, there's one case of a person in their early 20s with a history of depression and psychosis who self-induced drug intoxication via HRT, which led to a worsening of their psychosis and all of their other psychiatric disorders. Uncoincidentally, this is when Lance becomes more unhinged than ever before, as his peer continues to allege. I thought he kind of started going back to normal after that because he started talking again, but I was so wrong. I had another magic night at the end of January, so even though Lance wasn't completely fine, I just kind of did it to test the waters. I should have guessed because the nest was starting to form again. He was watching Doctor Who in the living room, and so I thought if he was just doing that, he'd be fine. But people started to show up and talk before we started, and he just started yelling at us from the other room to shut up.
Ooh. Ooh. This is a really good comment. No, not that one. Sorry. Wrong one. This one. It's not coming up for some reason. Let me hide that. Do you think you could get Chase to do a review of the guy Candace did the interview with tonight? That is a really good question. I'll ask him, actually. I think that would be a great live stream. I will send him a text after this. Chase is also a body language expert, but he would also be able to spot different inconsistencies within the story and some other things too. The other thing I want to get Chase to do is to do a review of Candace's original episode of 277, where she first introduces the story. And I'd like to hear his take on the way that story is laid out, the things that are included in it. And I just want to hear his take on that whole thing.
Which we thought was a joke since this was standard Magic Night procedure. He yelled again, and then we got quiet until enough people showed up to start a game. During the game, one of my more autistic friends started to bring up transgenders in sports. He literally couldn't get any further than those two words before Lance yelled at him to shut up from the other room. And to everyone's amazement, he tried to bring it up like 3 more times in rapid succession, being shouted down literally not even a second after he started his sentence every time. It became a very awkward game. It's pretty funny to think back on now. Bro could not take a hint. After that, more people showed up, and we started having 2 games going, and the mood mostly stabilized, and Lance just came in with sort of a loopy grin and a bottle of something. I'll summarize this part briefly since this person goes into a bit of detail about what happened, but Lance proceeded to throw this guy's extra rare magic cards around to try and get his attention. And afterwards, he went upstairs, at which point everyone started hearing loud thumping. Apparently, Lance had gone into a temper tantrum so intense that he was literally thrashing around on the floor, which hopefully was just a tantrum and not some kind of seizure, because at this point, Lance is really a prime candidate for that to happen. Their peer continues. After that, Lance went mental. I'd get to Lance and Tyler's place, and he'd be super wide-eyed with either a loopy grin or a rictus grin like the Joker, depending on his mood. The nest came back full force, and Lance started living downstairs full-time again. This is a picture of a kind of cleaned-up version. Imagine this type of mess, but denser and all over the living room and kitchen counters. He started playing on his DS and drawing stuff in, I think, Pitcho chat, and scribbling it all out while giggling with the wide-eyed Joker smile. He'd either be doing this, or his experiments, or talking with ChatGPT day in and day out. He hardly ever slept. The experiments got scarier too, like jugs of water with a whisk full of aluminum foil that had 2 copper wires coming out of them. The water was clear one day, and at some point, I think the wires got plugged into the outlet because the water turned brown and the aluminum foil was pretty burnt. He also started leaving little papers around the house.
See, Jim, I think the opposite is true. I think probably, and again, pure speculation, I think Lance was probably railing about Charlie nonstop, and that's what got Tyler talking. I think Lance completely influenced Tyler, and then, Tyler was trying to essentially prove his loyalty in an extreme way, like things often do with romantic relationships, by going to kill Charlie. I think he was defending his trans lover, if you will. So I think that's probably what happened, but we don't know.
That he had scribbled on while doing that giggling thing. It's at this point that our leaker here sent an extensive set of pictures he'd taken of the state of the apartment and the notes Lance left around. First is an image of their magic table, completely vandalized with garbage that mostly resembles electrical stuff, which is odd because Tyler was the one in an electrical apprenticeship program, not Lance. In the background, we can see what looks to be some kind of aquarium or big glass container with rocks in it, which may be the mold experiments mentioned in the messages. Underneath it is what looks to be a package for a rock tumbler, which makes sense given that Tyler occasionally did masonry with his dad. But it's when we move to what's actually on the table that things get increasingly bizarre. And we have isolated pictures of all.
All right, so here we have pictures of inside their apartment. And he talks about how they verified that this is their apartment. All right, they've taken pictures off the listing. But these are things that, number one, if you've been watching Candace, you haven't seen any of this because she hasn't talked about it, she hasn't shown it or anything else. And that is not journalism. That's not even being an honest broker of information. Like, you got to tell all sides of this no matter what, and not just the sides that you or just the information that you cherry pick. She has hidden information. She's continued to reference the rooftop as, Tyler had to scale the buildings like Spider-Man. Like that in and of itself is just deceptive nonsense and propaganda. And she continues to say that. She's told you that she hasn't shared any of the charging documents. She continues to hide information so that she can push a particular narrative.
Of the particularly interesting items. I'm going to say right now that I'm actually a specialist in literally nothing. So this is just going to be me trying to interpret these to the best of my abilities. And the screenshots I'll be looking at will be made available in the description for those of you who want to take a look for yourself and see if you can extract some sense out of the madness of Lance's post-it notes. The first one we'll go over is this one, which contains a set of spiral-like scribbles that may be disconnected attempts at making the Glock logo, given the squared spiral G and the word lock near it. Right above this, there's also what looks to be the small phrase E equals T, and elsewhere on the note, I can also make out the words regent and temp, although I have no idea if this is alluding to anything in particular. On the right side of the image, another post-it has the sentence, all of separate, underneath what looks to be the portmanteau no linguals. This is very rough to make out, obviously, but bilingual means that someone knows 2 languages. Monolingual means that someone knows 1. Therefore, no language.
Look, there's a lot of comments over in the chat about Tim Pool, a couple of which, and this one I agree with. Tim Pool is a lot of things. He says some things that I often disagree with him, but he doesn't give a flying rat's ass. Like, he doesn't care what people think about him. And I don't think he's lying. I think, generally speaking, I haven't found where he's lied about anything. I watch every episode of Candace and I can point out 10 lies. And the thing is, look, I've been planning on doing more debunking videos. And so I have all these videos of her saved. But it is such a challenge. She's all over the place in so many different videos. It's like you can't even pay attention to what's going on in one video, much less link different things and come back to it. It is difficult. It's almost impossible. But she says so many lies. Like, this is so much easier to sit and watch the video and point out what she's doing as she's doing it than taking this video and putting it all together and listen to 30 videos of hers, 30 of her podcasts, and then putting together an amalgamation of the different lies. Like, it in of itself is a confusing task. But no, I don't think that Tim Pool, I'm sure he has lied, but generally I find him very credible. Or the opposite is true with Candace.
Would mean someone who knows no languages or someone who is nonverbal. The next set of scribbles is a bit more cohesive, although I'm using that word pretty loosely here at this point. Here we can see stop looking for others at the top and Terraria Buggin Tear Ableist in the middle, which I think may be some wordplay with terrible and ableist. At the bottom of this page, an illustrated version of the word sine wave is written above lose it at the tude, next to a picture of of some bizarre looking animal. This attitude bit to me is very reminiscent of how schizophrenic people will break words down and obsess with syllables, word morphology, and portmanteaus. There's another example of this in one of the post-it notes where he writes, "I'm alone," obviously doing what I'm talking about here. On another page, we have
Look, I agree with this. And somebody's asking if they think that Lance Twiggs is his handler. No, I don't think he's his handler. I think if he was radicalized online, somebody else is doing it. And my concern is that we'll never see it. I think that's exactly what happened with Thomas Crooks, and we've never seen his digital footprint, even though we have, the capabilities of the NSA, the FBI, and I mean, we have the most sophisticated surveillance apparatus that has ever existed on the face of the planet, and they can barely find all the stuff that even Tucker Carlson found, I think they know that to be true. Is what I think. And I think the government is not telling us. Now, they could not be telling us about it for two different reasons, at least two different reasons. Number one, they were involved. I think it is highly possible that the deep state was involved into radicalizing and weaponizing Thomas Crooks to take out Donald Trump. I do think that is a very real possibility. So if that was true, then no, we are not going to hear about it. And let's say they even knew that. All right. The other possibility, kind of along the same vein, is that, we have the deep state version of different intel agencies. And what I mean are radical leftists in our political system or in our government systems, especially in the intelligence community, that are doing these things without oversight. And not only can they do these things, but then they can go back through and definitely erase any trace of them doing that. So that's kind of two possibilities in one. The other possibility is, they have proof of somebody doing this, whether it's attached to the government or not. And they don't want people to know that it's this easy. I think that is also a very real possibility. And my concern is that they're going to go back and they're going to find some of this information. And because they don't want the public to know that there are forces out there that are very easily radicalizing, targeting people online, finding certain psychological profiles that are easy to manipulate, and then manipulating them into doing horrific acts. I think the government would not tell us about that if they found that to be true. So that's my concern with all this, is that it did happen, but it's being covered up. So if you want conspiracy theories, there's one for you.
Sumus sumptuous right at the top, followed by SFTU piteous, which I assume is like shut the flip up, idiots, maybe. Further down the page, there's a rough sketch of America with the number 21.0 inside of it. And nearby, phrases like go to the store and small box, go listen to act. A lot of this stuff reads like Lance is just writing his mundane thoughts or whatever he's seeing on his phone in the most cryptic and insane way possible. But some of it does stand out to me as potentially meaningful or at least consistent. On a post-it note, he writes down TY and miss my BF, obviously in reference to Tyler. On another one, we have stop crying, stop stopping. And in one of the pages, we have the phrase full stop.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Tyler was trying to please Lance and prove his loyalty to Lance. I think that's a very real possibility.
Very jagged at the bottom, although this may be bull or something else. On this page, there's something pretty interesting, as the words federated and fed-related are right next to what looks to be the word CIA. And further down, a drawing of four symbols that ever so slightly resemble what you'd see on a set of Zener cards. If you're not familiar with what these are, Zener or Zener cards were created in the early 20th century to test if people had extrasensory perception, and much later on, they were frequently reported as being used in gifted and talented education programs. There are a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding this topic, some of them being more credible than others, but they typically have to do with the CIA project MKUltra, and how Gates may be some kind of offshoot of it.
I mean, cognizant dissident media says it very well. Look, I don't think it was by accident that he used a trans-colored tie. I think he wants to be a hero of the trans movement, and that's one of the things that he was doing with this. Unfortunately, he's being overshadowed by Israel, the French, people in maroon shirts they're not giving. He's not being allowed to get his just desserts. So
I won't get into the merits of these theories, not only because Wendigoon should be the one to do that, but also because it doesn't really matter as much as the reason why people are drawn to this topic online in the first place. You see, if you check on Reddit, the majority of people who engage in discussions about the nature of GATE programs are people who were in GATE themselves, obviously, meaning they were, at some point, considered to be gifted. You may have already heard about this, but there's a sizable phenomenon of gifted kid burnout, where people who used to be overachievers in their childhood, usually in the academic sense, could no longer keep up as they got older, and so their life spiraled out of control. Part of this phenomenon is that when they can't get over their attachment to how they were treated when they were seen as special, they come up with all sorts of extraneous reasons to justify their decline and convince themselves that they're still gifted in some way. Given that Lance is quite literally documented on video as a gifted kid, being an adept piano player from a young age, and his life definitely went downhill as he got older, it would make sense for Lance, in one of his weed, paranoia, alcohol, and hallucinogen real maxing binges, to stumble upon this stuff while doom scrolling and decide to scribble about it. This notion that Lance is still attached to the idea he's special or somehow intellectually gifted is later corroborated by this anonymous peer. But even just examining his projects, Lance clearly thinks he's doing something here. Among the incoherent scribbles, there's hot glue and electrical wiring and batteries, which leads me to suspect he actually...
Look at this piece of art, folks. Look at this. This is the work of a completely sane person.
Believed he was putting something together. And maybe some of these scribbles are, at least in his delusional mind, blueprints or rough sketches. At least some of his drawings had symbols that resembled electrical circuit diagrams, some even written on books about electrical stuff like impedance phenomena, while others had mathematical symbols as if he was writing down equations. Although, of course, none of it actually makes any sense to me or probably you. I will say some of this stuff legitimately gets pretty scary. To think that this guy melted his own brain to the point where he was drawing this is horrifying. Besides the consistent appearance of circuit diagram-like straight lines leading to symbols and drawings and references to spirals and spiraling, there is one image in particular that really got my attention. On what looks to be two pieces of cardboard, Lance wrote, "Hormonal flux is way fluctuative," followed by definitely orchid denialism. If you don't know, orchid is actually the medical term for balls. So with the context here being him mentioning hormones and of course identifying as trans in the few months prior to Tyler's attack, orchid denialism could be a reference to him outright not acknowledging or recognizing his balls. I can't make any other conclusion besides that one, but as I said earlier, all of the images will be available for you to peruse. And although a lot of it is just random babble, I am hoping that by someone else other than I taking a look at this, there can be some information extracted from these images. The anonymous peer continues. These scribbles look bad, but it's even worse when you saw his face when he was doodling it, combined with the giggling and how vigorously he would scribble. It was very scary. And the way he spoke was weird. It was a bunch of words, but none of them made sense together, or sometimes it'd be in rhyme, or just sometimes he'd only smile and point at things. If I was religious, I would have called an exorcist. The smile was so scary. And he showed me what conversations he was having with ChatGPT. He told me he solved some equation backwards and showed me the ChatGPT text as proof. The chats were just paragraphs of random Greek and I think Roman symbols with numbers and random letters going on and on. He'd somehow gotten it to respond in kind as well. He told me to start scrolling faster, and so I did. And he kept telling me faster until he was basically screaming at me to scroll faster, and the ChatGPT chats just went on like forever. I was sat there scrolling at max speed for at least like a minute or two, and by the bottom, it was still in the weird symbols. He started yelling at me that Nikola Tesla was abused by the people in his time and that no one we knew was smart enough to solve that equation, including me, because he is way smarter than me. This was all in weird, broken up sentences too. Definitely added to the creepy factor. Tyler told me that Lance had basically been up for like 3 days straight talking to ChatGPT at that time. It's interesting that he mentions he'd get an exorcist if he was religious, because when I was going over Lance's Reddit posts, he talks about how once his family threw him out of the house, saying he was possessed by a demon. If this is what they were having to deal with, that becomes a lot more understandable. As far as the chat GPT conversations in Latin and Greek, another common fixation of people who are schizophrenic is hermeneutics, the interpretation and analysis of biblical texts, often in their original language or as close to it as possible. There are huge online communities for esoteric and occult interpretations of the Bible revolving around sacred geometry or gematria, which, given Lance's repeated use of broken maths in his notes and scribbles, may have contributed to his delusions here. Again, this doesn't mean that this was actually happening, but it's a decent guess as to why those two specific languages and equations keep popping up in Lance's activities, despite him showing no interest in foreign or dead languages elsewhere. The messages continue. He'd sometimes just be sobbing in Tyler's arms, and Tyler would be rocking him back and forth. We all thought Tyler was a trooper for putting up with Lance in that state. So the next image attached in these messages is one that I don't think I can show you guys on YouTube, but
Yeah. So, one thing that really struck me when I was watching this, because I went in to watch this the first time, like, okay, I don't know what's going on here, but it seems objectively true, right? I mean, we have so much supporting evidence there. I mean, 5 minutes of this, and you've seen more potential evidence than you've seen an entire 3 months of Candace and her whole thing that she has going on, right? So,
but you will be able to.
It is believable
To check it for yourself in the description. But it's a used condom on the sink of the bathroom in the common area. We know this photo was taken in their apartment because the counter, sink, toilet, and other details match this photo of their sink taken from a Zillow listing. The same applies to another photo of the table in their living room, which once again matches the Zillow listing, as we can see that the window with the white blinds is in the same location. As nasty as this is to even take into consideration, it is worth noting that it is completely empty, which leads me to think that even if Tyler was still engaging with Lance in this way, it was more out of pity or a sense of duty than anything else. The anonymous peer says, crazily enough, while Lance was like that, Tyler was still hitting it. When I told Lance I would be leaving the general area, it was crazy. He snapped back to reality for a second and just thanked me for all the good times we had had hanging out throughout the years. After that, I think Lance had been brought back just a little bit, and he even let Tyler take him out of the house to start seeing a psychologist. It almost made me feel bad because, not gonna lie,
Crypto says, you got me through the last 6 hours of my 12-hour shift. Shout out from the Middle East. Stay safe out there, buddy.
I was starting to become really apathetic and not really care about what happened. Like, it was just so much energy to try and deal with Lance. Tyler was a real trooper for dealing with him. Lance even calmed down enough for us to hold like 3 more magic nights. We all thought Lance would be okay because he had Tyler, who was basically his handler at this point, to take care of him. Eventually, my friend who lived across the street from their apartment let me know that Lance had gotten into an argument with his grandpa, who owned the apartment, and his grandpa had taken his car away. This I'm not sure about, but I suspect it put him into another one of these spirals. I imagine Lance was just alone with Tyler in the apartment, just driving Tyler crazy. I'd be hard-pressed to stay sane while living alone with Lance while he's like that. I joined a couple Discord calls with Tyler and Lance would say one thing and then be silent, and Tyler would just talk normally. Tyler even joined a call 2 weeks before the assassination and acted completely normal. All of this is really interesting to me because while we did have an inkling that neither Tyler nor Lance were in their right mind by the time the attack took place, it seems like the situation was that Tyler was being subjected to an incessant barrage of genuinely psychotic ramblings from a paranoid and deranged Lance, who had recently become significantly more political. As is customary for people with these kinds of delusions, they start fixating on prominent people, imagining they have some specific relationship to that person, usually that they're being stalked or otherwise directly antagonized by them. This is probably when the name of Charlie Kirk entered the mix. And while it was probably just one among many delusions Lance would probably forget about by the time his episode ended, it seems it seeped into Tyler's mind as the cause of Lance's problems. Obviously, there's the political context of it, with Lance being trans and Charlie being conservative and criticizing the trans community. But judging from the leaked messages between Lance and Tyler, it does seem Lance himself is taken aback and shocked that Tyler did what he did. If I were to guess, Tyler took some of the things Lance must have said while in a state of delusion to heart. while Lance had already forgotten about them a while later. Their peer concludes his messages by saying, after talking to another friend apparently right after he did the shooting, he joined a bunch of Discord calls asking if anyone had seen the news while breathing heavily. And literally the next day, he was in call just chatting with people while playing puzzle games. And also for the record, Tyler 100% calls Lance my love when they are talking alone. Hopefully this sheds some light on.
Yeah, old Rage Bronson, the putting peanut butter on French toast psycho that we all love. I think the fact that Tyler was attracted to and in love with someone like Lance says enough about his mental state. I agree. Definitely says something about it.
What it was like behind the scenes. With all of this context provided, I think it's beyond the shadow of a doubt that the last messages exchanged between Tyler and Lance are real. It also elucidates the nature of their relationship, as Lance was someone Tyler was mostly taking care of rather than having a normal relationship dynamic with. From the looks of it, it seems like Lance is someone who, at least at one point, was very self-aware and proactive as a person, being confident enough to argue with others over his worldview, while Tyler has always been quiet and stayed in the background of any setting he found himself in, including his relationship with Lance. Unfortunately, it turns out that he was simply less expressive of his thoughts. Now, the leaker also sent me their Discord logs, and this dynamic of Lance being the expressive one while Tyler played a subservient role is also reflected there, as Lance messaged the chats way more frequently and even had his own server. The logs I...
All right, so this guy, he does talk about this at the very beginning that I kind of skipped over, but this guy is telling Turkey Tom that he was friends with them both for over 6 years. And then, once they started living together, he was going over there all the time. This is over like a 6 or 7 or 8 month period or something like that, where he's just taking pictures of this. Now, I can imagine, as a younger kid, going into your psycho friend's apartment, taking pictures of this stuff to make fun of your friends later on. Like, look at the shit that I saw today. Yeah, but it is interesting. Like somebody said, once I saw that on the kitchen sink, if I ever saw that, never go there again. Matter of fact, if I ever heard, I don't know. Matter of fact, I know I couldn't stomach sitting there watching two dudes make out. I'd be done.
Got are of 3 different servers that Tyler and Lance were parts of. Lance under the name Lanceolotl and Fluxolotl, and Tyler is the name Zealous_Monkey and Bedbug Inspector. These messages date all the way back to 2020, and although most of it is pretty irrelevant stuff and boring, it is kind of spooky to see that at some point these guys were like completely normal, just sending memes to each other on Discord. Interestingly enough, Tyler frequently spoke of going fishing or making fishing trips that lasted for days with no cell service, where he would speak to no one. While this isn't really negative, it does differentiate Tyler from his peers. There's one kind of introvert who stays indoors and plays on the computer, and then there's go fishing in the middle of nowhere with no cell service for days kind of introvert. Still, at least early on, it's clear that the people in this server have no issue with offensive humor and don't necessarily swing politically in any given direction. Although there are a few odd things that I have to note, even if they are just jokes. In mid-2020, someone else on the server tags Lance and says, "Nobody said gross when you said you wanted to bang your 2-year-old cousin, Lance." The context of this is that the same guy who sent this message said he wanted to bang snake girls, and Lance responded by saying gross. But honestly, this doesn't explain that much. Another interesting tidbit from these chats is when the topic of religion came up, prompting Lance to say, "Isn't Brigham Young the one with all the quotes about how black people are cursed and can't hold the priesthood until they get uncursed by God?" For context, Brigham Young was an early leader of the LDS Church. In response, the person with whom he was talking said that most religions start screwed up, implying that they would get better over time. To which Lance replied, "And most still are," basically shutting it down. Long before the gender issue was something Lance was invested in, his earliest strong opinion is a clear anti-religious sentiment. Still, at no point here is there any sign that Lance's opinion is unquestioningly shared by the entire server, as most people here express pretty reasonable and mixed opinions. Around the same time that those messages about Brigham Young were sent, they were discussing politics and video games, but no one was really arguing as much as they were just expressing their views in a friendly manner. Eventually, Lance says auth-right lib-left unity, referring to the squares of the political compass of authoritarian right and liberal left. So clearly politics weren't taken too seriously by this friend group. A little while later, still in
All right. So we're going to dig into this a little bit deeper. But Jason over at the Jay Witt podcast just sent me some information. I don't know how much he wants me to share or not, but I think we know exactly who old Mitch Snow was, and his story is going to be debunked with a lot of upcoming facts, and you guys will see the evidence of that if this is true. All right, so stay tuned, because we don't talk about too much until we have evidence.
2020, Tyler can be seen commenting on the presidential debate, saying that it was hilarious, but making no further comment. In September 2020, Lance says, Femboy Friday greater than Tomboy Tuesday, White Girl Wednesday isn't where it's at, followed by White King Wednesday. These seem to purely be jokes, as he showed no signs of identifying as a femboy at this point in time. As a matter of fact, when someone else sends a few messages saying, Femboy hypnosis is finally working, my nipples are so puffy, Jesus Christ, Lance responds with 2 long strings of question marks. Although this may 100% be irony on Lance's part, in November 2020, he sent Vote Jeb to this.
Hold on a second. Old Patty. I came this close to banning you for trolling. All right. So, wow, Gary, I really misjudged you. This is no better than Candace. What are you talking about? We're talking about what's going on over here. So don't even play the pretense. I remember exactly who you are, and I've talked to you many times in the YouTube comments. So you just continue to clutch your pearls, and I don't know what this is other than we're showing what somebody showed with evidence. The video is chock full of evidence, by the way. So you keep clutching your pearls, girl. But I know who you are, so don't play these games where you're going to come on here and try to discredit me and compare me to Candace when you've done nothing but defend Candace and try to flame me in my own YouTube comments. I remember you.
Chat, referencing Jeb Bush's failed and often memed on 2016 presidential campaign. Interestingly enough, at least back in 2020, Tyler seems to be the one who was more politicized from the Discord messages. At one point, he went as far as to suggest that freedom of speech should be amended so that vaccine and COVID skepticism.
Disney at Boiler Up asking if this is a real person or a computer generated voice. No, it's a real person. All right, that's Turkey Tom. He's actually shows himself at the beginning of the video. And all his videos are kind of like this, but real person, that's his voice.
Was not protected by it and could get you punishment by the government. Also, I've repeatedly seen people claim that Tyler was a furry, but in these chats, he seems to deny it, as when another user says he is one, he replies by saying, I told someone I wasn't going to watch their anime one time and get called a goddamn furry. This country is going downhill. Earlier on, even Lance was open to cracking some more edgy jokes, like me proving that being black is a myth and calling other people libtards. And I'm under the impression that he engaged with lolcow and internet drama culture to some extent. The reason why is because there's a good few messages of him talking to someone else about Terry Davis, where he calls Terry a weird nerd, but acknowledges that he has a sad story, while expressing no hang-ups about someone else in the server, echoing Terry's use of the N-word to describe CIA agents. There's also a good few messages in which Lance can be seen discussing Chris Chan and his current girlfriend, Flutter, where Lance says Christorians must be praising the sun, with one odd message comparing someone's looks to janky, which could be in reference to someone else in the server, but most likely is in reference to Isabella Janky, one of Chris Chan's most infamous tormentors and A-logs. As of 2022, Lance sent a few messages complaining about H3H3, saying this: can't stand the podcast or new content. His old videos are still good. I don't understand how he was able to go from genuinely goofy and enjoyable content to purely bad political takes and one of the most boring podcasts I've listened to. Half the time, he won't even let guests talk. He just interrupts them to make a bad joke and then doesn't let them finish. Another interesting token of Lance talking about the kind of content he interacted with online is his positive review of Wendigoon's content, which seems to come from Isaiah's videos on FNAF lore based on other messages sent by Lance to the server. To put it simply, up until some point in 2024, like I already suspected in my first video, Lance was mostly normal and didn't take much of anything very seriously. Even when his doom scroll nest phase began, he was still capable of making light of what he was up to, saying the following: I have have begun only sleeping on the couch, cooler downstairs, and less room to move, or I fall off/get eaten. Tyler, on the other hand, seldom engaged in the same degree of joking as Lance did. The most I could find on him suggesting an interest in edgier online content is a GIF that he posted of Gypsy Crusader. When he did send text messages to the server's chat, it was usually to give people a small window into his private life. In 2020, there was some conversation between him and other users talking about a YouTube channel he once had, which contained a tour of his bedroom. Unfortunately, as far as I know, and according to the messages Tyler sent here, this video and the entire channel have become lost media.
All right, I'm going to continue to address this when it comes up because it's disinformation. Magic Monkey says, when Tyler's dad saw the gun, he knew that it was Tyler. Remember? Oh, wait, that was a stock photo. So that part of the narrative doesn't make sense. That was not a stock photo. All right, we've proven this. I posted a bunch of stuff to X. All right, the first time that photo was ever seen on the internet, you can look this stuff up yourself, that it was September 10th. So, or September 11th was the day that they posted that. So again, it's more disinformation going around saying, oh, this was a stock photo. It was not a stock photo. That is a photo of the actual gun. So quit buying into the lies. And it's all these little lies that keep getting pushed around, like the dumb thing about Tyler. Oh, he was actually handicapped and he had this weird gait, and that's why it looks like he doesn't actually have a gun down his pants. It's all these dumb things that are constantly trying to discredit a certain narrative to push other narratives that have no evidence with them whatsoever. So Magic Monkey, you're either a liar and you know that to be wrong, or you've been deceived. But I would, if I was you, you can go research that very easily. I'm sure you know how to use Google and Google Images, and you can look for the sources of image. Matter of fact, you can even look for it in ChatGPT.
In 2021, he said that his brother had accidentally discharged a firearm and shot a hole in the wall, with no further comments from Tyler. In 2023, it seems he became a bit more talkative, and he shared a few more times about his electrical apprenticeship program and what kinds of things he had to do in it. But any apparent character development for Tyler came to a screeching halt in late 2023 to 2024, when Tyler's messages became noticeably more politicized, some of them in reference to war in the Middle East, and some of them joking about the assassination attempt on Trump, saying snowflake liberals can't shoot straight because they too busy being gay. While he was definitely still reading the room, so to speak, and not breaking into a rant, he clearly became more agitated about these things. Curiously, another member of the group chat was at a campus of all places when a shooting took place, and Lance responded with concern. All of a sudden, this agitation too gave way to something else, mostly silence. As Lance became increasingly present in servers and started one of his own, the femboy server, as he put it, right around the time they started dating, Tyler became increasingly inactive, even less expressive than he was initially. Most of the information from this time period comes from Lance, who notified the group chat when he was going on a date with Tyler or watching TV shows with him. Speaking of TV shows, it's quite possible that the show they were watching was Beastars, the big furry anime show, because Lance discussed it in the server on a few occasions. Now, from late 2024 to early 2025, some of Lance's messages further corroborate the claims made by his and Tyler's anonymous peer. First off, he says that he's been chronically sleeping from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., and that it's been wreaking havoc on his life. Then, we have a ton of messages in his own server where he's talking to ChatGPT, although I'm sure this is only a fraction of the full extent of his communications with it. Lastly, we have Lance inviting everyone in his server to attend the anti-Trump No Kings protest. Over the previous half a decade worth of Discord messages, nothing from Lance comes even close to as clear of a political expression as this. As far as Tyler's presence in Lance's server, one of the last messages I was able to find of his was sent in August, where he simply says, "I am very ill." Within a month of this message, the tragic day of September 10th comes around, and the following day, Tyler sends his confession message to their old friend group server. It's interesting to me that he sent it in this server and not to Lance's new server, because I'm not sure why that is. It could just be that he was less familiar with the people there, but based on the kind of messages sent there, which we're going to go over later, it could be that he wanted to avoid having anyone say something that resembled support for his actions. In the original group chat, one of the most prominent users replied, saying this: "Hey everyone, if you haven't seen the news yet, Tyler's post above is true. He was taken into custody earlier earlier today for the shooting of Charlie Kirk. Regardless of the horrible actions that took place, we must take this moment to remember that God is a living and loving God who loves all his children. God calls sinners to be his saints, and I ask that you all take a quiet moment to pray for Tyler and his repentance. While Charlie Kirk's politics were not acceptable to some, I ask that we all say a prayer for him and his family during these confusing times. Love you all. God bless. Given the clearly religious nature of this post, it's safe to say that this particular Discord server was pretty varied in what kind of people were in it, especially since it mostly went quiet after the attack on Charlie Kirk. Over on Lance's server, Lance's final message there was from a day after the shooting, tagging a user that, as of the archiving of the messages, was no longer in the server. After Tyler's crime took place, many of the users complained about the harassment and unwanted attention from journalists and random people online digging up everybody Lance was connected to. That's a perfectly reasonable reaction, especially since, as far as I can tell, most of them just occasionally played video games with Lance, so their connection to Tyler was tenuous at best, even if they shared a Discord server. But there are a few things I want to go over that I didn't mention in my previous video, such as the fact that Tyler had a few blurbs of unusual online presence that I hadn't seen. For example, he had a DeviantArt under his older handle, Crafton247, where he lists himself as they/them. It's not possible for this account to belong to someone else that created it after the assassination, as it was created 2 years ago. Then we have another account with the same exact handle, this time on Fur Affinity, but there doesn't seem to be any significant activity on it, just like on DeviantArt. And for those of you who don't know, Fur Affinity is like the furry website. It's the #1 furry website, okay? Now there's also 2 Reddit accounts under the names Crafton247 and Crafton248, neither of which contain any significant info. There's one post on each account, both of some pretty mundane content and from years ago, long before he was dating Lance and became more politicized. Now lastly, there are the Steam accounts of both Tyler and Lance. Tyler was clearly much more active on Steam, being level 50 on the platform. It is interesting that Tyler once set his name on there as Donald Trump, but besides that, nothing of note really. Part of why there's very little to say is that Tyler clearly set most of his settings to more private options, which again is pretty reflective of the kind of guy he was. Lance, on the other hand, had pretty much every facet of his profile completely public, where we can see that the last game he played was 2 days after Charlie's death, and his profile has been completely inactive since then. Given the testimony from Tyler and Lance's friend, even people who knew them in real life and frequented their living space only ever caught glimpses of the exact nature of their relationship. Based on the last few months prior to Charlie Kirk's assassination, as far as I understand, they weren't really having anyone over, and their output of messages to their online friends also significantly decreased. I have done my best to contact Lance about all of these claims and get his side of what happened.
Carol Lene 606. The road is long. Thank you, Carol. I don't know what that means exactly, but it is long. Thank you, Preacher 52. We appreciate that. Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's important. The people that really care about what's going on, you can take this, you can assess this information however you'd like to assess it. But I think it's super relevant, and I think it's really important to watch and try to get an idea of what's going on inside of Lance Twiggs and Tyler Robinson's life. And, you know, again, you don't believe any of this is true? Fine. I'm not sure what the obsession is with those on the Candace side of the argument to protect Tyler. It's really weird. So, I don't know. It is what it is. Just an observation.
But he has not responded to 3 different requests for comment. Unless one of them, Tyler or Lance, decides to speak up and elucidate the lead up to what happened, I think there's no chance we can piece together a full narrative of the events that contributed to Tyler's mindset. Clearly, it was politically motivated, as both Tyler and Lance had become much more political, particularly around the topic of gender. Hopefully one day we'll get all the answers. Anyhow, I've been Turkey Tom. Thanks for watching, and until next time, leave me alone.
All right. We will stop that there, and we will hit again, we got another, you have to go We'll separate these views. We'll get over here. I need a producer in the shot. Here. That's what I need. Yeah, I don't know. It's not letting me share this tab. But anyways, I'm on the University of Utah sponsored lecture by Armed Queers. Folks, we're going to do a deep dive into the Armed Queers. Why cannot? Let me see. There we go. Here we go. Because you guys need to see this. I don't know why people haven't looked more into this. Again, I'm sure that the FBI and Utah authorities looked into this. But there is something crazy going on with this whole thing, and I think it's very possible that there could be some sort of link between all of this and what's going on with Tyler Robinson and many more. All right. Let's hit some final questions here and call this. We've been going for, oh God, we've been going 5 hours. We've been going for 5 hours. Thank you for debunking that the rifle being a stock photo. It is definitely not a stock photo, like many other things here that are constantly being presented as facts when we know they're not. Honestly, someone with an audience should secretly send Candace an outlandish and bogus tip just so they can then come out publicly and prove how weak the verification process is. I'm not going to do that. All right. That doesn't sit right with my conscience. And, you know. Oh, they found the Brown shooter and the killer of the MIT professor dead. I'll have to look that up tonight. All right, folks, we got a lot more to cover over the next couple of days. I should have another guest for you tomorrow. I'm trying to think who it was. I know I have a guest for you tomorrow night. We'll see who that is. Oh, I know who it is. You're going to have a great guest for you tomorrow. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, folks. We really appreciate all the love and support. Share our content. Again, folks, if you believe that Candace, well, look, the reason that her message is getting out the way that it is because she has some really crazy followers and they're out there spreading it around. Whether it's my content or you create your own content or other people's content, man, get out there and shout it from the rooftops. What is being done to this country and people being fooled by this nonsense is damaging on so many different levels, and it has to come to an end. She should have to pay a consequence for her lies, her deception, and it's all intentional. And for, accusing people of murder, you guys saw Andrew and what he had to go through. It's a real shame. That shouldn't happen in the United States of America. Anyways, folks, we are going to be back here tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you come join us tomorrow. We will have a great guest for you. I will post that sometime tomorrow. So make sure you have hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell icon. And we really appreciate all the love and support. If you're not following me now on X and Instagram, I put those links down in the description below. If you'd like to become a member and help support this channel, you can do that as well. But until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you.